We are here, and I want to thank Misfit Patriot for accepting a short noticed debate. We were having a Twitter back and forth, and he was gracious enough to come on, and so we agreed to discuss the topic of whether Christian Zionism is a biblical concept, and what exactly should that role of a Christian be in terms of support? Is it right? Is it wrong? What's the history? What's the breakdown? What's the background? Although we're going to have an informal back and forth discussion, I think it might be good to have kind of opening statements so we know explicitly what the other person's positions are. So if you want to go for it first, you can. If you don't want to, I'll be happy to go first. Doesn't matter to me. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. So like you said, we're doing this on short notice. Think we just got the topic of the debate maybe a half hour ago. So Christian Zionism, if that's what we're discussing, then my argument would be true Christians would have to be Zionist based off of what I would probably call like theological Zionism, because there's a conflation between modern Zionism, Theodore Herzl's Zionism, and Zionism of Abrahamic covenant. That's where I sort of lean. I lean more on the covenant, because there's this new sort of I would say revisionist Christianity where they sort of just start the Bible at the New Testament and try to exclude the Old. But as you know, as most people know, you can't just cherry pick the parts of the Bible that you want for confirmation bias. The Old Testament still applies. The Abrahamic covenant is forever, as stated. I believe a few different times. I think Psalms 105, if I'm remembering correctly. There's Deuteronomy. There's Zechariah. There's a few others. And for the record, if you're expecting a theological scholar, a religious scholar here with me, that's not me. I don't have all of the knowledge of some of the other people, but I have done enough debate back and forth on this topic where I have sort of revisited all of these areas, and I just sort of argue the point from being a Catholic who grew up just Sunday school, went to see the Pope in Italy, and then I just sort of always was a non-practicing Christian. And a few years ago, I got back into it, and I'm trying to do my best to actually read the Bible again. And yeah, that's where I'm coming from, man. I'm just coming from a place of I don't understand how people are ignoring the one part of the Bible that is very clear. God is omnipotent. He made a covenant with the Jewish people. That covenant is forever. And anybody that's going against that, I feel, is going against God, is not actually being a true follower of Christ. But that's it, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could give an opening statement. I'm happy to do that, but maybe that's a perfect place to start it off because, the Abrahamic covenant is explained and exegeted multiple times in the New Testament as to what it's referring to, how it's fulfilled, and how it's kept. So Genesis 12, 15, 17, 22 are all the statements in reference to Abraham from God. And in all of those, we have this promise that all the nations will be blessed in his seed. So the fulfillment of the Abrahamic covenant is not to the flesh nation state of Israel. It is to the person of Christ, and the nation state of Israel's job was to produce that person. That's why Galatians 3, Romans 4, Jesus in John 5 through 9, when he debates the Pharisees over and over, particularly John 8, explicitly states that the only way to be Abraham's seed is to be in the seed, whom Paul identifies in Galatians 3 and 4 as the person of Christ. So your mistake is to think that there's some sort of dual covenant that Jews have separate from Christ, when Paul says in 2 Corinthians 1 that all the promises are in Christ. That's all the covenant promises. They are yea in him. That would include Mosaic. That would include Noahic. and that would include Abrahamic. So there is no such thing as a separate promise to a nation of the Jews that is not a reference to the person of Christ first and foremost.
Well, how do you explain Romans 11:2, where John, I believe it was, reiterates that the Jews
No,
do
Paul
have
wrote
a
Romans,
covenant?
not John.
Paul. Again, you're not going to get a religious scholar here, so if I mess up,
Well, but you were
please.
talking big game on Twitter that you were going to shut me down and spank
Yeah,
me.
no, listen, man, I'm here to debate you, and I will admit when I have strengths. I will let you know if I have certain weaknesses. But if you wanted a theological debate, you brought on the wrong person. That's why you probably should have looked at many of my posts where I say I'm not a religious scholar. I'm arguing based off of the text that I can get in front of me in a Twitter like feed. So somebody says something, I can go look it up. I can read it, interpret it, and then go off of my own personal experience in the Bible
Right.
studies that I have.
So the remnant that Paul's talking about in Romans 11 is written to a church that's having squabbles within itself at Rome between Jews and Gentiles. The remnant that God has preserved are the believing Jews who are the believers in Christ. The original foundation stones of the church, the 12 apostles, the several thousand that are converted at the beginning of the book of Acts, those are all Jews. The church is a Jewish grounded and founded institution. But Jesus predicts in Matthew 21 that the Jews, as the vine dressers who failed at their mission, will have the kingdom taken from them and given to another people producing the fruits thereof. That does not mean there's never Jewish converts to the church, but the largely Jewish church will become the largely Gentile church, fulfilling the dozens and dozens and dozens of prophecies in the Old Testament that when the Messiah comes, the church will be largely Gentiles. The Gentiles will seek him, as Isaiah 11 says. Incense will be offered throughout the entire world to Jehovah. That's not an evangelical church. That's an Orthodox Catholic church throughout the world offering incense. Now, you know that only the Aaronic priesthood can offer the incense. So how is it if the Abrahamic or the Mosaic covenants are still in force in their historical sense? How are there Gentile priests, as latter Isaiah says? How is there an altar built in Egypt to Yahweh when you can only have an altar at the temple in Jerusalem?
Here's what I'll ask. Okay, Jesus was a Jew, correct?
So you're asking a question to my
I'm
question.
asking. Yeah, because again, you're gonna try to hit me over the head with theology, and I've already told you that you're going to have.
I'm just
a
citing
more
you the
vast
verses,
knowledge.
all of these verses.
Yeah, you're citing me verses that you're cherry picking, and then telling me to.
No,
know
I'm not
about
cherry
them.
picking. I
That's not-
just
that's
cited
not
you.
it.
I said
I'm
there's
just saying.
dozens of verses that talk about a Gentile church.
And I have verses where I'm like I said, I have verses.
And I'm
where
saying
I can,
that those verses explain what that church is, what that seed fulfillment is. So you're literally just ignoring everything that I presented.
Yeah, because again, you're trying to give me this long, exhaustive list of, and you're telling me to take your word for it. But
No, I'm
I
not telling.
don't.
We can go to all the passages. I listed you multiple passages.
Okay, look, I will concede that, I guess, and we'll just see if you can answer this question. Jesus was a Jew, right? Jesus was a ethnical and religious Jew, practiced as a Jew, died as a Jew, right? And Christians follow a Jew. Okay, so the first Christians were Jews, like you just said, correct?
Sure.
And Messianic Jews, if you want to say. Okay, the people, those people, you're saying are what? No, they're okay. They get into the kingdom of heaven. The Jews that don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah, they're, from what I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here. They believe that the Messiah will come, but I believe it's stated. I actually did take this one note down, if you wouldn't mind me pulling up a note. The right here. The Antichrist will intervene and guarantee the security of Israel, enabling the Jews to rebuild their temple. Daniel 9:27. At the end of 3.5 years, the Antichrist will enter the rebuilt temple in Jerusalem and declare himself God. Daniel 9:27. Matthew 24:15 through 18. Two theologians, 2:3-4. The Jews will reject the Antichrist, and he will respond with an attempt to annihilate them, killing 2/3 of them in the process. Revelations 12:13-17 and Zechariah 13:8-9. Almost done here. At the end of the tribulation, when the Jews have come to the end of themselves, they will turn to God and receive Yeshua as their Messiah. Zechariah 12:10, Romans 9:27, 28, Romans 11:25, 27. Jesus will return, regather all believing Jews to Israel. Deuteronomy 31 through 9. So, with that being said, right, the Jews that you're saying don't, I guess, fall in line with the new covenant will, am I understanding this
All of those
correctly, will
passages that you cited, like in Daniel 9, are not about the end of the world and the Antichrist. So you've imbibed a dispensationalist, premillennialist heresy, which colors your interpretation of the passages. All the church,
No, it's not my
all of the
interpretation.
church, all of the church prior to the rise of John Nelson Darby and the Scofield Bible interpreted Daniel 9 as a messianic prophecy, and that Messiah the Prince is the same prince in the verses prior to that. That's why he brings in everlasting righteousness when he's put to death, and that temple system went away in 70 A.D., which is the very thing that Daniel 9 and Luke 21 and Matthew 24 predict. Jesus says in Luke 21 that when you see, talking to his apostles in front of them, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by Gentiles, know that its time is at hand, that it will be destroyed, that it will be raised to the ground, exactly what it says in Matthew 24. So all these passages that you think are about the end of the world, like John Hagee and all these other heretics say,
I'm not thinking they're the end of the world. I'm reading them from notes that I took.
You literally just started talking about the Antichrist in Daniel 9.
I'm sorry. I should have clarified. That was notes that I picked up that somebody else did write.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that these passages,
I was asking for your clarification on
the passages that, and my clarification is that Daniel 9 is not about the Antichrist and the end of the world. It's about the first advent of the Messiah. That's why every time it says that Jesus ascends into heaven in the New Testament, when it cites Psalm 110, it says he began his reign when he ascended and sat at the right hand of the Father. Okay. And that is the first advent. So the kingdom is not a premillennial future thing. It's a present reality that in Matthew 16, Jesus calls the church. The church is the kingdom of God. It is not a end times eschatological 1,000-year kingdom on earth.
Okay, so let's move to why don't you tell me why the Christians shouldn't be Zionists?
Well, Christian Zionism was never believed by any Christian until it was promoted in America through certain entities out of Oxford and out of the circles of the Rothschilds, such as the people pushing the Balfour Declaration. It's called the Milner Circle.
The Rothschilds.
Yeah, you don't know about the Balfour Declaration?
No, I do. The whole Theodore Herzl works with the Rothschilds, even though
I'm talking about the Balfour Declaration. You don't think that's the Rothschilds?
No. I'm just saying. People always bring up. We're now getting into modern Zionism, and I was trying to get an argument from you for theological or
okay. There is no such
Zionism.
thing as Zionism in the history of the church, if that's what you're asking. It doesn't exist. Can you name Can you name any single post-apostolic church father that has your interpretation of the nation state of Israel?
What do you mean? I'm sorry. I didn't understand that question. Go ahead, ask it again.
You wanted to ask, I thought, about the historical issue of Christian Zionism. So that would relate to church history and the history of Christians. And I'm asking you, can you name a single historical Christian in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th century who believed what you believed in this regard?
No, I mean, like I said, I don't have that information in front of me. You're asking me to quote somebody.
So church history doesn't matter, or I mean, you're asking me about the history.
No. Don't straw man me. I see what you're doing there. Look.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not straw manning. A lot of Protestants. A lot of Protestants don't believe.
I don't think it matters because I don't have.
A lot of Protestants don't listen. A lot of Protestants.
I'm not a Protestant, but 66%.
Well, you're not. Well, what are you?
I'm a Catholic. I told you.
Okay. Well, the Catholic Church teaches what I'm saying historically. So you're a heretic according to the Catholic Church.
The Catholic Church. I'm not a heretic.
According to Roman Catholic doctrine, you are a heretic if you teach that the nation of Israel has a covenant that's still in force. The Council of Florence explicitly says you're a heretic.
So my Catholic Church, St. Henry's, right up the street. My priest is a Zionist.
So he's a heretic according to your own church's tradition.
So we're all just anybody that disagrees with me is a heretic. Is your
No, I'm talking about do you know what the Council of Florence is?
See, your interpretation.
Do you know what the Council of Florence is?
Hold on. Your interpretation.
No, I'm talking about I used to be a Roman Catholic. I know Catholic dogma.
The church is a man-made institution. You'd agree with this, correct?
No, see, that's not a Catholic teaching. The church is not a
Hold on.
man-made institution.
The church.
You don't even
was
know
made-
Catholic
the
basics.
chur- hold
What are
on,
you talking
made-
about?
Who made the church? God?
The Catholic
Like, what do you-
Church does not teach it's a man-made institution.
What do you mean? How was it made? How was
my
the church
gosh.
made? The church was made.
Dude, why
after
did you think you were
died.
going to be able
Hold
to
on,
come
hold
on
on.
here and debate?
Why did
You don't know
ask me
anything.
listen, I'll take any
Because you started talking smack, man. You said you were going to come on here and whip me. You don't even know the basics of Catholicism.
Who made the church?
You thought John wrote Romans.
Who made the church?
Jesus set up the church.
Jesus set up the church. The Catholic Church wasn't set up until after Jesus died. How did Jesus set up a church after he died?
Jesus sets up the church explicitly when he gives the keys to Peter in Matthew 16, and he says,
So he didn't start the church.
He did start the church. His apostles are the college that he gives the Holy Spirit to.
So the apostles went to college and then they started the church. So it's a man-made
Oh my
institution,
gosh.
like I said.
They went to college. You don't even know what the college
I'm
of the
using your own
apostles
stupid
is.
fucking words against you, dude. The church was made by
My
man.
stupid fucking words?
That's the church.
You
was
think
made
the
by
college
man.
of the apostles is a stupid fucking word that I made
The
up?
church was made by men. Yes or no?
No, you don't even know what the college of the apostles is. You're
But
you're
hold
literally
on,
an idiot.
Hold on. The apostles were men. Yes.
But it doesn't follow from that it's man-made because that's a
Well,
Protestant
it wasn't
term.
made until after Jesus died, dude. I don't know what the fuck you want. You're telling me
The
that
church-
something was made.
Listen, you
Hold
have
on,
to.
wait,
Are you
Jesus-
trolling
hold
me?
on.
Because the
No,
Roman
Jesus-
Catholic Church argues that Matthew 16 is the founding of the church on the rock of Peter. That's your church's teaching, Goofus.
Yeah. Okay, but
So the church was founded there.
founded in the institution of the church. I don't understand what the fuck you're talking about, dude.
Because you don't know the basic terms of anything in this regard. That's why.
All right,
You thought the college of
who
the
made the
apostles
church?
means they went to college.
Who made the church? Like you're still refusing to answer this question. Who made the Catholic Church?
I already answered the question that Christ
Jesus-
founded the church according to the
Okay,
Catholic.
so Jesus was.
You
man.
don't even know
Jesus-
Catholic theology, man. You're a clown.
Jesus was a
dude.
man. Jesus was a man and God. So according to you, it's a man-made institution.
It's not
either
a
way.
man-made institution. It's a divine institution according to your own church's teaching.
Okay. Now you were saying something about Protestants, right? 62 million.
You're not even a
like,
Catholic, dude.
I know. Oh yeah, sure.
You know.
I didn't
Well,
mean
you
to
said
say-
you
no.
were a minute ago.
No.
Are you a
according
Catholic
to
or
you,
not?
I'm not.
The
No,
chat
giving
thinks
yourself
that
a
you're an
good-
atheist lying. They don't even think you're
Who cares?
actually.
I don't give a fuck what your chat thinks. Why would I care about what your chat thinks? I didn't even
Because
know who you
nobody's
were.
buying your bullshit. Because you don't even
I
know
didn't know
basic
who
terms.
you were until like
I don't
a
care
half
what you do
hour
or don't
ago.
know. You don't know anything.
So you got over 60 million Protestants. 80% of them are Zionists. That's about 40% of all Christians. But
Yeah,
Christianity.
they're not Christians. I don't hold that they're
So
Christians.
anybody that doesn't agree with you is not a real Christian.
No,
is
Protestants
your
are not Christians. They're heretic.
They're all heretics. So you see, that's
Correct.
the problem with you people.
What
is,
did Cantate Domino of your own church teach about heretics and Protestants? And other Christians?
yeah. I don't care, dude. You can keep on trying.
So
to
you don't know
fucking-
the dogmas of
no,
your own
you're
church
trying
and
to
you don't
you're
care.
gonna try to pigeonhole me by asking me a question
About your own
you don't
church's
know.
history?
I am not a fucking priest, dude. I go to church. I do not know the Bible back to front. I said that in my opening.
But you don't even know the
statement.
basics. Why did you think it would be a good idea to debate?
You asked me to come on. I'm here.
No,
So-
you talked smack and said you were going to put me in my place.
Well, so far you're doing that by yourself, sir.
Putting you in your place? Yeah.
No, you're putting you in your place. You're fucking. You fucking. You're
All right,
so.
but you're a complete clown. This is
Okay, cool. Cool.
We're done. All right, enough of that. I knew that was going to not last very long. We're going to open it up to people over here on the chat. If you want to call in, biggest idiot I've debated since T-Dump, maybe. He thought John wrote the book of Romans and that the Catholic Church teaches that it's a man-made institution.
So I came a little late. The guy had already gone off the rails, and you were asking him where the church fathers did he get the idea of Christian Zionism. I just wondered if he could sort of just let me know. I never really heard what his idea was of Christian Zionism.
I thought he was asking about historically because he said, well, where do you think this idea comes from, or what's the response of Christians? And I was saying, well, Christians historically have not responded to any sort of idea that there's a continued promise to a flesh nation state of Israel. That doesn't mean that there's no such thing as Jews anymore, like some of the pagans say, or these weird cult groups, but it means that there's no promise to a national land in Israel per se. I don't necessarily have a problem with Jews having a homeland and being self-determining peoples, but there's nothing that in the Bible promises them that, when even Orthodox Jews, many of them, not all of them, but many of them will say that they can't even go back to the land until the Messiah comes. So they think that that's a messianic fulfillment for their future Messiah. And so that's why if you read, people that aren't particularly religious Jews, they'll often talk about this fact that it was a lot of geopolitical motivations that created the nation state of Israel through the Balfour Declaration and
Get your definition of synonymous from.
What does that have to do with it? I didn't even use the word. You did. You tried to insert the word on me.
Oh, synonymous, how we have discussed the
Wait, I'm a little bit.
past I go.
I'm a
I'm
little-
trying to understand. I'm trying to understand how you sit up here trying to
confused.
insert.
Okay.
I'm a little confused.
Because he didn't get
Psycho.
to his point. He got stuck
I
on this.
think where he's going, because I've seen him run this type of argument many times before, right, is that he wants to say that the reason why people define atheism as lack of belief in a God is because they don't want to have to make positive arguments against the existence of God.
Oh.
But so he wants to say that in fact atheists are lack of beliefians, right, who don't actually have any justification for their position. But see, the interesting thing, Psycho, and you might want to ask Darwin this question, is whether he has any justification for his belief in God. Now, I take
We
it.
didn't get that far.
Well, I take it that there are two ways to justify belief in God, right?
Hey, PMars, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Pretty good. I just threw this on. I know you said you had something from Jack you wanted to critique. If you wanted to take a look at that, we could.
Yeah, I have a newer video of Jack. This is
Or
old.
we can check this.
These videos are kind of interesting because they're so old. This looks
You
like.
want me to just keep playing this?
Sure, I could grab that link if you want. Give me a second, but you can keep
All
playing.
right.
One way is to give an a priori argument. Do you know what an a priori argument is?
No.
An a priori argument is an argument that doesn't require evidence for it to be given. Something that
What?
can be done from the armchair. You don't have to actually check any facts in the world
Oh.
to do it. So, for instance, we can make a priori
Like
mathematical arguments.
yeah.
Right? We don't actually have to go out and test them. We can just reason.
Yeah, all arguments are going to have an a priori dogma attached to them, are they not?
Yeah. So, it's like the synthetic analytic distinction. You familiar with that?
William Van Orman Quine. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like they want to say to get empiricism to work and make sense. They want to say like some things are true by definition, like math or something, and then some things are true because we observe them. But Quine points out that that's dogmatically asserted. It's never defended. Yeah.
Two dogmas of empiricism, right?
Our way from the armchair without having to go out into the world and look for evidence in support of the hypothesis, right? We can just prove it sitting in the armchair. That's what an a priori argument is. Now, Darwin's doesn't have an a priori argument for the existence of God. So he can't justify his belief in the existence of God that way. Now, what he's said is that his belief in God is not a mere basic belief, which is to say a belief that doesn't have any justification. He calls beliefs like that pure
So
fantasy.
Darwin
He
is
doesn't think there
Darth.
can be.
This is his old name.
Yeah.
Yeah, just in case you didn't know that. You probably picked that up.
Yeah.
Anybody can rationally hold basic beliefs. He calls those pure fantasy because they have no justification. So he thinks he does have justification. Well, when he thinks he does have justification for belief in God. So when you ask,
He sounds like he's jogging or something. Like, what is he always like that?
He's probably like walking through the streets of New York
Oh yeah.
or on his bicycle.
him, why do you believe in God? He says, because of the evidence, right? But here's the interesting thing. He's never once produced any of the evidence. He's never even been able to cite any evidence for the existence of God. He's never even been able to show how there can be evidence for the existence of God. Right?
Curious.
So in fact, he doesn't actually have any reason to believe in God because he's simply lying when he says that he has evidence for it. So the
Outrageous.
fact
No,
of the
you
matter
don't.
is, he has no justification whatsoever for his belief in God. Now, what follows from that is that he lacks a belief in the non-existence of God. Because he has no justification for his belief in God.
So
Now,
would
he
that make?
uses the atheist. He says
So
the
would that make him?
atheists.
He
So would
lacks,
that make him an
makes him a-
agnostic theist?
he lacks a belief in the non-existence of God.
Yeah. I mean, this is. I'm listening, but
Deep.
sounds like it just sounds like he has an emotional problem with Darth, if I may, point that out more than anything. He's trying to come up with this strange way of countering him. So
Emotional problem with God.
what's that?
His emotional problem is with God, and then he.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Romans 1:18. Do you want to put that into private so it comes up as I can click on it? Just put that in. Thanks.
So this is a Monkey Boy video. I can't remember what it was about, but I remember thinking we should watch it. So I remember that. That's all I remember.
Oh,
Because
Monkey
I was
Boy. All right.
planning to watch it with you. Go ahead.
I actually never listened to Monkey Boy, but I know who he is.
I think
So-
Jack is. It's a lot of Jack, if I remember right. And he's talking to someone that's precept, but it's not Darth. So I'm not familiar with who this is, but he did a good job, I thought.
Okay.
We can give you, for the sake of argument, that if he did exist, these things would follow. We want to know what justifies the belief that he does exist.
Why? Because there are preconditions. I just gave it to you, right? There are preconditions for the things we're saying, right?
Yeah, but why would anybody accept that?
Why? Because you're choosing to speak. Well,
That's
No,
his
no, no. Why would I accept that in order
This
to
is his
speak,
move.
I would
He
need...
goes, he'll just go, "Why would I accept that?" And then you,
Yeah.
and then
That's
you
the
give him a reason.
convince me.
Yeah,
Right.
and then you give him a reason or an argument, and he goes, "Well, why would I accept that?" And then you give him a reason for an argument. He goes, "Well, why would I accept?" He's just gonna do this forever.
Right. So if you were talking to him, you might say, "Well, are we going to make this about you and your personal acceptance?" Right? Because you can turn that into an assessment of his philosophy. It's a good gateway to do that.
I couldn't get him. So what I did was I was like, I tried to just like do the answer a fool according to his folly. So I go, "Okay, Jack, you're right. The Bible's false. But now I can't get out of bed tomorrow because I have no standard of truth. So Jack, what's the standard of truth?" He wouldn't say. So I mean, at that point, it's like he's just off. Yeah.
Well, if he doesn't have a center of truth or a standard of truth, how's he going to critique you or negate you?
Yeah, they're acting like the Bible's not a foundation for truth. They're trying to treat it as if it's some fact that they could deny without a foundation.
Well, they have to have something in place to be able to refute it or make that claim. And when you turn that around to him and he says nothing, it shows that he has nothing.
Because it's a foundational. It's the foundation. It's not just a fact inside a worldview. It's
right. It's meta level.
The Christian God, right?
Because
in order to speak meaning
he
to something like
justifies.
that, right? I would need the Christian God.
Well, that's going to get deep into the philosophy of it, which I'm not. I could go into that, but that's going to take a while. Like when I get into the specificity of like what a proposition entails, all right, and how there's the Christian God, namely the Trinity, justifies every single part of it, right, such that it's actual and intelligible. But even if I just go basic and say, like, the fact that you're asking that questions, you have presuppositions, right? You're using the laws of logic. You're presupposing causality. You're presupposing that you're experiencing, right? Like, so you just asking me that question, like, why would I accept that? That like, it's like you're shooting yourself in the foot.
He's making a good point. He's pointing out all the transcendental categories that he's assuming and even having this dialogue. So that's a good move.
Yeah, so when he goes, why should I accept that? He's standing on the Bible. So he's like, it's a clown move.
Yeah.
So look, let's grant for the sake of argument that there are all these like presuppositions.
See, let's not, right?
Yeah.
Let's have you explain that. I don't want to grant it to you.
Yeah, it's not like he's acting like, oh, I'll grant that. Like so that's putting him in the position of power, right? He's taking
right, but that's exactly what you want him to talk about. So it's a smart try for him, but that's exactly for anybody listening, that's where you want to say no. I don't want to just grant that. I want you to explain.
Yes, defend that you don't need presuppositions, right?
Yeah, there might be another way around that too. If he's going to grant that, it comes out to, well, my ultimate presupposition is God, type of thing, where it's similar to like it just is. If you're going to grant presuppositions, well, God's going to be ultimate over anything that you're bringing to the table, if you want to take that route. But I would rather have him explain, like this. What's this guy's name he's talking to? Just tell.
Well, the sentence, like, this sentence doesn't require presuppositions. That sentence requires presuppositions. Mm-hmm. So it's a contradiction.
Nice.
Right. That must hold in order for me to be able to speak meaningfully or whatever, have intelligible thoughts or whatever. What I'm trying to understand is what is the argument that establishes that for that to be the Christian God would have to?
Why? Because he has the property set for knowledge to be possible, for our speech to be intelligible.
Your claim is, your claim is that no other entity could have that property set or something like that. So I'm trying to understand what's the justification for that claim.
Right here, I would say something like, well, I'm going to assume that to be true. I presuppose that to be true. If you disagree with that, then you can make a counter argument. It's not up for me to continue to make an explanation right here.
I would say that, like, the property set of the other thing in question, right? It's either going to be so close to the property set of Christianity that it's just going to be the same thing, or it's going to be just a different thing. So that's the argument, and I think that's what this guy says. But I remember, I think he says what I just said.
So Jack is just basically playing the game. Do whatever you can not to make a claim and keep questioning him, right?
Yeah, he's asking. Yeah, he's just like endless. It's like when the kid goes, "Why? But why? But why?" That's all he's doing.
Yeah.
I'm a bit confused. So you're saying that what's the justification that no other entity has Like what, the property set or a different property set? Is that the question?
There's no other entity that could have the property set that um, would have to obtain in order for, you know, these presuppositions to hold.
Well, if they had the exact property set, then that would just be the Christian God because they would have the same
Exactly.
mind. So
Exactly.
if it's the
Stupid question.
exact same property set, it would just be the Christian God, the triune God of Scripture.
Well, wait, is your view that um, that you know all the properties that God has?
Through His revelation, through Scripture, yeah, we can know.
You know every property that God has.
Uh, I can't. I don't know exactly. We have a good grasp of His property set from the Scriptures.
Yeah, but are there properties that God has that you don't know about?
Say yes. Yes.
You could.
He should
I
just
mean, no,
deny.
because they would
He should just
overlap.
say yes. He should just say yes. That's not a problem. Jack's gonna try to make it a problem, but it's not a problem.
Between these properties. I mean, they would just overlap, yeah. So they just be. I would say no. Yeah, He's revealed all the properties that He has in the Scriptures. Yeah.
But like, I don't understand. Like, there are propositions that God knows, right? That you don't know, right?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and so one property of God is that He knows those propositions, right?
Yeah, He's all knowing. Yeah, that's what we say. He's all knowing. He's omniscient.
Right, but that means that you don't know all the properties that God has.
Wait, no, because when we say He's omniscient, that's including all the propositions that He knows in every possible world or in the future. That's all within that property, omniscient.
Look, there's a proposition you don't know. Let's call it X, right? And um, the 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 one property of God is that He knows X, right? But if X is true, right? But if X is false, God doesn't know, and so God doesn't have that property.
You said if He doesn't know, then He doesn't have that property. I didn't hear the last part.
If he doesn't know that proposition because that proposition is false, then he doesn't have that property.
What is he talking about?
I don't think Jack's realized the guy conceded that God knows things that I don't know, and so Jack's trying to get him to admit that, but he's already admitted that.
Yeah. The proposition is false, then he doesn't have that property. I mean,
The property that I know it, yeah. If the proposition's false, God doesn't know it. Because knowledge
well,
is
he knows it's a false proposition.
yeah, but he doesn't knowledge is something that's true, you know.
Well, okay. I mean, in a sense, though, the knowledge is how we find things that are false too. On the other side of that.
Yeah, but it's like we don't typically when you say you know something, it's like it's like a justified true belief. So like a false proposition, it's like I don't know. It's kind of weird to say you know something.
You have to know. You have to know. You have to have something in place to point out a false proposition. I guess is the way I'm looking at that. You know what is.
I don't remember how philosophers cash this out. I'd have to look it up, but I think there's something he was saying like I know thing.
Yeah, sorry.
Because it's a justified true belief.
Yeah, if he doesn't know some proposition, then yeah, that would follow. Then he doesn't know it. Okay, but that's not the case, right? What's your point?
Yeah. What is your point?
He's going to say because you don't know the entire property set of God, you can't say that his property set is the precondition. I guess that's what he's going to say. But that's a non sequitur.
Yeah, right. I mean, you can obviously question him back on how he came to that realization and so forth.
It just doesn't follow. Like, I don't.
Sorry. So
What's interesting is the logical fallacies, you can basically sum them up as non sequiturs. I mean, that's basically what they are, right?
I guess, but some of them,
like poisoning the well is different because it's something prior to the proposition.
yeah,
But most of them are just basically what you said doesn't follow.
yeah.
if you don't know that proposition, if God doesn't know that proposition, he doesn't have that property.
He doesn't know that proposition. He doesn't have that property of omniscience.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
no.
well,
I'm not saying he doesn't have the property of omniscience. I'm saying give him proposition that he knows, right, is a property that he has, presuming that that proposition is true. But if that proposition is false, right, he doesn't know it because it's not true, and you can't know false things.
you can't know false things.
See, that's where I'm getting a little bit.
Well,
I would have some pushback there too. You know false things because you know the truth.
no, but think about what the knowledge is. They're going to say is a justified true belief, right? So if knowledge is a justified true belief, it kind of doesn't make sense to say I know something false. You can say I know it's true. This is false.
That's essentially what he's trying to do. He's trying to bring in this authority of justified true belief and point out that the believer is believing something false. He has to identify it as something false in order to do that. So it's part of whatever's happening, even though I see what you're saying. There's a certain way of defining this philosophically, but it's still part of this whole discussion. What is true and what is false has to be identified from having a standard of truth, which Jack doesn't have, by the way. You know, I think this guy is entertaining his question, but if he just starts to turn this around a little bit, I mean, I'm interested in.
Because Jack will never take the burden. He's never going to do it.
Well, he already has the burden, though, right? That's what you need to point out to him, right? Like,
but he's going to debate like he doesn't have the burden and you have the burden.
So he's walking into a situation where he doesn't.
He's showing the burden fallacy.
Which one?
He's doing the burden shifting fallacy. That's all he's doing.
Trying to play neutral, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can only know true things.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you don't know whether he has that property or not, right? Because you don't know whether that proposition is true or not.
Well, no, I do because he's identical to truth. So everything.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? It means it means he's truth revealing. So since he's truth itself, he's the standard of truth, and he's the standard of knowledge. He knows everything.
We're not questioning whether he knows everything, right?
Well, you said
we're questioning whether he knows X, because if X is false, he doesn't know it, right?
Wait, can you clarify? What do you mean? What do you mean by if X is false? I'm confused on.
Look, imagine a very large number, right? Let's say it's an odd number. You don't know whether it's prime or not, but God knows, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if it's not prime, right? God knows that. But if it is prime, God knows that, right? But the proposition X, whatever that number is, let's call it X, right, is prime, right? It's not a proposition that you know to be true. And it's not a proposition that you know to be false. Okay? So you don't know whether God has the property of knowing that X is prime. Because if X is not prime, God doesn't have that property.
What would make you say he doesn't know what that is. I don't understand.
So you understand that if X is prime, God has the property of knowing that X is prime.
He has the property of knowing X is prime.
That's right.
Uh, I don't. I'm not understanding when you say, because when you speak about his knowledge, we're gonna use it. We're just speaking that in like some package. Like he knows all propositions, right? He knows all true propositions, past, present, future, in all possible worlds. So that we're just putting that all together. So, are you saying that he doesn't know? Are you saying it's possible that he doesn't know a proposition is true? Is that your contention?
I'm not questioning whether God is omniscient, right? I'm granting for the sake of argument that if God exists, he's omniscient. I'm saying if the proposition X is true, right, God knows that, and therefore God has the property of knowing X. But if the proposition X is false, right, then God doesn't know that X is true because he can't know, right, something that's false to be true. So he doesn't have the property.
But propositions are truth claims. They're truth value, right? They're
Yeah.
so then they can't be false, right?
Propositions can't be false.
They can be true.
No, like what I meant by that is propositions are through what's that law?
Excluded middle.
Law of excluded middle. It's any proposition is either true or its negation is true. So it's like when you say that it's possible he can know a proposition is false. I'm gonna be honest. You said you're granting he's omniscient. What are you saying that he wouldn't? What are you trying to say that I don't know that if he has the property set of knowing a proposition is false?
So
I don't really
let's
see
take
it,
a
dude.
proposition, right? Like 10 to the
Yeah, see, this is I'm kind of with the kid talking to him because, like, if you say Jesus Christ is the truth, and then you have all these other false propositions you bring to the table, like somebody else is the truth or something else is the truth, well, you know that's incorrect, right?
I just wish he'd get to his point. I don't really get where this is going. He's meandering forever on this.
200th power plus 1, right, is a prime number, right? Now let's say that proposition is true. Then God knows.
He's a total dork. Why didn't he just say 7 is a prime number?
I don't know.
That number is a prime number. And so God has the property of knowing that it's a prime number, right? But you don't know whether that number is a prime number or not.
Okay.
Right? And so therefore you don't know whether God has that property or not, because if that number isn't if that
it's kind of like he's just trying to sell him doubt. He's like, you know some things about God, but you might not know other things about God, and God could be a deceiver. It's like the Descartes demon thing.
He's already conceded that God knows things that he doesn't know. So I don't.
Well, I think he's trying to move into the Descartes demon thing. Like, well, how do you know God isn't a deceiver? Because you don't know.
No, I think he wants to say that, like, because his argument had to do with God's property set. He goes, well, you don't know God's property set because there's this thing about God you don't know. So how can you say his property set? I think that's where he's going to go with that.
Okay.
Number is not a prime number. God doesn't have the property of knowing that it's a prime number.
No, but I think I'm saying just because I don't know it doesn't mean God doesn't. You're trying to conflate that.
I am granting that God knows it, right? I'm saying he doesn't have the property of knowing that it's a prime number if it's not a prime number.
Because the other guy's confused because
he would know.
This. The other guy's already admitted that, yeah, God knows things I don't know. So that's why they're like talking past each other for the last 4 minutes.
Right.
It was or not.
I understand that. I'm saying he doesn't have the property of knowing that it is a prime number if it's not a prime number.
Why am I? I don't, to me, you're not making sense to me. Is there
No.
another theist? Is there someone that wants to
like
is someone-
maybe
does
Venus or
someone else want to like try to
or
explain what he's saying?
Jason or Eric or somebody else here can
Yeah,
explain
I
the
can
point
I
that
can
I'm
try and break it down.
okay.
Yeah, so and I'm a Christian, by the way, but I think what Jack is saying is that you can't know something that's false. Like the classical definition of knowledge is that not justified true belief. Would you agree with that?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So in order to know a fact, it has to be true. So are you with me so far?
Mm-hmm.
So because God's omniscient, God knows everything that's true.
Okay.
And it follows from that and from the definition of knowledge that God can't know things that are false because nobody can.
Wait, God can't know things that are false?
Yeah, he can't know a fact that's false because all facts by definition are true.
Right, okay, I'm getting I gotta think this through. Hold on. So you can't know a fact that's
Try
not
do you have a paper and pencil?
Yeah, I'm about to write this because
Yeah.
I've never even heard this before. Yeah, I got it.
Okay. So the classical definition of knowledge is that knowledge is justified true belief.
Well, I mean, there's where they're going wrong from a Christian standpoint anyway. Who cares about the classical definition in secular philosophy?
Okay.
So in order for a proposition to count as knowledge, there has to be a justification for it.
Yeah.
It has to be true, and you believe it.
Sure.
Yeah. So God is omniscient. So
God is omniscient, yes.
yeah. So in order for God to know a proposition, it has to be true.
Right, okay, I'm following.
Yeah. So nobody can know a proposition if that proposition is false.
Okay.
And that also applies to God.
I see.
Okay. Yeah. Is that an accurate summary of what you're trying to say, Jack?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so God can't know things that are
What does
false.
that mean?
He can only know things that are true. I could
Like, what is it? So, okay, God can't know things that are false, and like, I don't. Okay, where are we going?
Yeah,
go with that, yeah.
right. You see.
So what's the thing that he knows that's false, that's wrong?
No, what I'm saying is that there are properties that God has that you don't know. And I was giving an example
That's
that
my
you don't know whether he has the property of knowing that 10 to the 200th power plus 1 is a prime number.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I know this is a two-way conversation, but if we're allowed to jump in, just
No,
feel free.
feel free to jump in because this is going to be
Okay.
a lot of
Yeah,
work.
so-
It's going to take a collective effort.
Okay.
Yeah.
So actually,
actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would agree with that, because if you already accept that God is omniscient, then it
Yeah.
follows from that God knows that that proposition is true.
Yeah, I would go with that.
Yeah, but Jack,
What I'm saying is,
he doesn't
what I'm
understand
saying,
the argument Jack is making. Like, no one's tracking this conversation. I think I am. Maybe I'm not. But I think Jack is trying to say, okay, the precept made an argument. Well, God's attribute set is necessary for logic or knowledge or whatever. And then Jack said, well, how do you know that? And he was like, well, because if another thing had the same attribute set, you know, it'd be the same thing. Remember that? Then Jack is like going to this thing, well, God has attributes you don't know. And so he's trying to attack the original argument. But I guess his reasoning is going to be, well, if you don't know every single attribute of God, therefore you can't know that his attribute is a necessary precondition. But we don't need to know every single attribute. We just need to know like the attributes like unchanging, universal, omniscient, right? Omnipotent. Like we need to know these attributes. We just need to know that the attributes that satisfy the preconditions. We don't need to know every attribute. So this argument would fail for that.
Right.
is that you don't know whether God has the property of knowing that 10 to the 200th power plus 1 is a prime number, because if it's not a prime number, God wouldn't have that property of knowing that fact, because he couldn't know something that is false.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying now.
The hang up I'm having is like when you have the truth and you point out things that are false, there's a thing going on here where they're like, oh, you don't know it's false, but you do, because you know the truth. That's where I'm getting hung up.
Yeah, but so like technically knowledge is something that's true. So if the proposition is false, you would just say that proposition is false, but you wouldn't say it's knowledge. It's just a technicality.
You're like, that proposition is false, but I don't know that. You see what I mean? It doesn't really work. Like they're interactive. Like that which goes against.
I think that can be consistent, because if you knew it, it wouldn't be true. It wouldn't be false. So you could say that proposition is false and I don't know it. So that's consistent, because if you don't know something, then it's either false or undetermined. It can't be true.
So you don't know when someone says Buddha is the truth, you say, oh, I don't know that.
Well, I would say I know that Buddha isn't the truth because I'm a Christian.
Right. You know that that's false, that your claim of Buddha being the truth is false.
Well, I wouldn't say I know that's false. I guess more, if you want to be more technical, you should say I know Jesus is the truth, not Buddha.
But doesn't that mean that you're able to discern that Buddha is not the truth?
Because you know Jesus is the truth, not because...
So you just don't want to say, I know Buddha is not the truth, because then you're... it's just weird. It's weird.
I mean, like, it's a difference between how we speak colloquially and how, like, they're being very precise with, like, analytic philosophy. So that it's just...
Yeah. So the question becomes, what is the ultimate truth in this proposition of analytic philosophy?
Okay, but, like, do you understand their point that if knowledge is... So in the literature, it is defined as a justified true belief, right?
Why is the literature an authority becomes the question.
Well, I mean, that's another argument. But, like,
let's
just grant that it is. That's what we're going to define it, right?
Then that's a dangerous area for you to grant.
But I'm just trying to make a point, man. Like, I'm just
Go ahead.
If we're going to define it that way, which is standard, then it does follow that technically, like, we don't know things that are false because it literally is just definitionally that way. Now I know colloquially when we talk to each other, we'll say, like, I know that's false, right? Which isn't, like, we speak to each other in terms that aren't always precise. Sure. In terms of, like, the academic definitions or philosophical definitions.
The reason we don't take on the secular philosophy is because the Bible teaches us that through the truth, we point out deceptions, warn others, avoid them, defend the faith, fight against deceptions, right? So there is a reason to stand by the scriptural definition of truth. But if you want to grant it, yeah, we'll see what happens here.
I mean, you know me, like I'm all for going against the authority of secular philosophy, but like I just think like I wouldn't really challenge definitions too much. I don't know.
Well, I think that you realize that you can probably still defeat him even with a grant. That's the point, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay, but if we say that God knows all things, right? You granted that and that necessitates that he knows everything that is true, every proposition, then we, even if we don't know, we could know that he can't. It's impossible for him to know a false, something that is wrong, right? We can know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not questioning your ability to know that.
All right.
What I'm saying is you don't know whether he has the property of knowing that 10 to the 200th power plus 1 is a prime number.
So how does quick question, how does all this tie into everything else that's been said before this point?
Please tie this in.
Yes, thank you. 20 minutes in.
Jeez. Yeah.
Say that if there was another being that had the property set, it would be God, right? But he doesn't know all of God's properties. So all that matters is
Yeah,
that there's a being that has
I was right.
Okay.
the properties that are necessary to ground intelligibility or knowledge or whatever, right? But that leaves open whether there could be another being that has those properties, right? That's not the Christian God.
What properties would be required to ground the possibility of knowledge?
Well, just to hit the point before, his omniscience, right? That's going to be
This is just a different version of when someone realizes they can't overcome tag. They're like, well, I can copy it. I can make a synthetic tag, and I welcome that. But these guys are not going to. Jack's not going to answer questions, I'm guessing.
No, he's just saying like, what if there's this hypothetical foundation that can ground logic?
Is that an argument?
It's like, well, hypothetically, let's say you're wrong. Then would you be wrong? Well, yeah, I would be. I mean, I don't see how this is. What is this?
It's just another atheist trying to sell you doubt, trying to get you into a sophisticated conversation. To get okay, that's your doubt. How's that my problem? If you want to make an argument with your doubt, try to construct it from your worldview, and then argue my worldview. Yeah, we can do that. But other than that, you just have your own doubt.
This is kind of a worse. Darth calls this the worldview body double. Well, like usually what they'll do is they'll try to argue for Islam when they're an atheist. Have you ever noticed that? Like why? Darth calls this the worldview body double. Or oftentimes when I encounter this, I'll be like, God is a necessary precondition, and then they'll go, why isn't it Allah? Well, they're not a Muslim. They're an atheist, right? But instead of providing their foundation as an atheist, because the last thing an atheist wants to do is talk about atheism.
Right.
So rather they're going to start talking about Islam. Why isn't it Islam? And so Jack, it's actually an ad hoc rescue fallacy because they're not offering their foundation. And so what Jack is doing is even worse. He's saying, well, what? There's this hypothetical God that has the same property set that can ground logic. So to respond to this, be like, okay, where's the God? Where is it? Mine is revealed. Where's yours?
Yes.
That's how you
yes.
should respond to this.
Yeah.
He's trying to argue for an imaginary foundation that like it's it's basically like he's going, well, hypothetically, what if there's this foundation that's not yours that grounds logic? Well, then hypothetically tag doesn't work. But I mean, are we doing hypothetical? It's like, obviously, hypothetically, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, but a hypothetical doesn't stand against an actual revealed in history,
Right. I get it, man. I get it. Patrick, if you got something for us to critique, we'll check it out and pop in if you want to, man. Critique it with us.
Yeah, sure. We can move on. I don't think this goes much deeper, but we can keep going on here a little bit.
Him knowing every proposition, right? That's true.
We're still stuck on this.
So
you got to get
when
him.
you say- when-
I think this guy has been doing good at answering Jack. I think he just got confused because he granted Jack's thing, and then Jack kept trying to press him to get him to grant something. But I think he has responded really well. But
Yeah, I mean, he sounds good faith. He just sounds like he's trying to really understand what's happening.
Yeah, they just got a confused thing there.
when you
Can
say
you-
when you
can
say
you-
when
hold
you
on.
say hold on,
Yo, hey, can you restate the objection?
no, because he's not understanding. That's the problem, right?
Wait, hold on, wait. I know
he's
it's
not understanding.
wait, hold on. Eric, can you talk?
Yeah.
Okay, what
Dude, I'm not, dude, I am not re-explaining this objection.
If you guys don't know Eric is the top debate bro.
Oh, now it's mockery.
Yeah,
We moved on to the mocking phase already.
Well, that's probably the best they have. So
I mean,
go.
every time we do tag, they do this. Oh, it's a bad argument. Well, why is it a bad argument? Because I said so. Oh, okay.
Why did you try to counter it unsuccessfully and then decide to tell us it's bad? Why didn't you just tell us it was bad up front?
I spoke to this guy on live the other day, and he said that for something to be metaphysically possible, it just means it's necessary in all possible worlds. That's a quote.
Oh my goodness.
Seems like we have our work cut out for us.
Someone on the internet said something wrong. Someone on the internet said something wrong yesterday.
Stop it.
Just say step 1, step 2. Just do that instead.
Yeah, because it's like he doesn't even understand the objection. Like he doesn't understand.
Is he still stuck on that God can't know false propositions?
Amicus, we were going to look at something re-exam had, even though he can't pop on right now. But also, if you have something that you wanted to share.
Maybe we should switch this up. I don't think they're gonna like.
Okay,
I think it's pretty much like now they're just mocking.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I thought that was like, that's good.
Yeah, I mean it's fine. I kind of want to talk to Jack Anschutz. I think he's a good guy for me to talk to because I think I know how to stop him.
I would love to see that. He is a wily sophist.
Yeah.
Notice like Monkey Boy does a lot. So Monkey Boy will do that. I don't see how that follows. Like he just kind of.
Well, let me help you. Yeah, let me help you, Monkey Boy. Let's figure out what your system of belief is, what your standard of truth is. Let's get that out in the open, and then we can see why it's not adhering to what I'm saying, why you can't follow it. Instead of trying to put the burden on me to keep talking, let's get into how you think about things, how you access truth, and how you put it and formulate it in a coherent way in your own head, and then we'll see why you can't fall to this.
One time, Monkey Boy asked me, "What's the argument that logic exists?" And I was like, what the heck? So I say, well, if logic doesn't exist, why would you ask for an argument?
Right. It's almost like Aristotle in the Sophists denying non-contradiction, right?
Yeah. See, like, I think they don't even think about, like, is he even really thinking about what he's saying when he goes, what's the argument? Logic exists? Like, why would you even say that? Like, I think they're just, what's the argument for that? Like, they're not putting any thought into what's going on. And they're literally just like robots. What's the argument for that? What's the argument for that? So if you say things like 2 + 2 = 4, and they go, well, what's the argument for that? It's like they look stupid, you know?
Yeah, well, that's a good response. You want to move to something that's objectively true that people don't that usually disagree with. Yeah,
that's the whole point of tag. Is like we're both using logic. You can't deny logic. Well, give an account for it, because the idea is that it's something that you can't deny because you have to assume it and to deny it.
Well, it's a good gateway for you to say, I'll give an account for it. In my purview, God is the necessary precondition for logic. What is your account for it? Which is going to result in it just is. And then you can come back with, well, God just is, and God is prior to logic.
They'll give you abstraction. So they'll say, like, T-Jump will say reality.
It's not going to work.
This Van Til says they're absolutized statements of abstraction. So the absolute has to be concrete. We can't, because, like, so when we're saying Jesus is absolute, I mean, he's concrete as it gets, because he was like a person that walked with us. It doesn't get more concrete.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what makes the tag and the triune God work.
Because they'll never have a concrete absolute, because they're just going to be some abstraction, like Big Bang. I don't know.
Big Bang.
I have to interject. You said
have to.
Well,
no,
before,
you don't have to.
Okay, so I think we have Shiva and Teriak. I don't know if re-exam is on the panel or not, but we'll see what we can get out of this.
Before you do so, Charles.
You said 29 degrees.
Machiwa, Reggie. Machiwa. Machiwa Rex, welcome back.
Hey, back in none too soon. Shiva, Charles, good to see you.
Hey, PMars, you ever think of doing some costumes? Because you got a style that's pretty funny. Like putting on wigs and stuff just to be funny. You ever thought about that?
Doing what, like costumes?
Yeah, I was just seeing Jim Bob puts on that wig and those teeth. I can see you. I mean, you're pretty funny, dude. Like you got a whole comedy thing going that people
I put on like a bike helmet and I started to act kind of like, you know.
Oh yeah.
And then people got mad at me for that. Like,
well, yeah, there's so, you know, as far as like using the word retard, it's like the worst thing in the world. But
yeah, dude.
Aborting babies, that's cool. But
this Christian, I got called an ableist. There's that ableist. That's disgusting.
Hey, Shiva, here
good
you
to
go.
see you, Rex.
That's re-examination.
No. Shiva said, correction, someone said 29 degrees Celsius versus 30 degrees Celsius. No, it's like fucking 1 degree fucking either side of the same fucking thing. Okay?
So that's what I was, Charles, I was expanding on that. So we have an absolute zero, and like is that 0 Kelvin? Like I don't know what it is Kelvin, but
absolute zero is 203 degrees Celsius, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong.
230 degrees Celsius is not absolute zero.
No. Correction. Minus
well,
2.
Charles, Jack hits us with the.
I'm here to tell you right now.
I think the full screen is glitching. No big deal.
Yeah, spin that wheel. So we gotta spin that wheel. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure what you were going to say, Charles, was very enlightening, though. To be fair, you know what I'm saying. Also, have a good one, Jack. If determinism is true and all our actions are caused by prior events, can we still be morally responsible for what we do? I have a feeling this is going to get interesting with Rex and Shiva on panel. Go ahead, gentlemen.
So
Is determinism true?
We're granting that it is true in this case. If it is true.
In this case, well, it depends on your model of determinism. If you have a material determinism, I think it would necessarily be true that you are not a moral agent, and therefore responsibility would be moot as an idea altogether, because your brain would just be downstream from the laws of physics rippling from the Big Bang and throughout redshift and all the things in between. You're just a windsock in space and time, just reacting to the ripples across the space-time continuum.
Yeah, good point, Patrick. It goes further than that too. You can't even make arguments which require evaluations of what is and is not false. Propositions that you formulate, they're all going to be just determined factors. So
this
further.
I think there's a problem with this question though, because I think it should be if hard determinism is true, right?
Yeah.
Compatibilism would allow
Right. If you want to get specific, yeah. Right. And I think Patrick, he's Patrick Sharp, that he pointed that out at the get-go. He said it depends on your model of determinism before he even answered. So.
Yeah, that was a good point. Yeah.
But as far as Christianity goes, I would say because there is a differentiation, not only a spiritual and a physical side of the individual person, but there's also primary and secondary causation. You can have decreed ends, which will inevitably happen, while also interacting within a free will space of your own choices that actually reflect your individual wants and desires. I also accept the fact that you can do what you will, but you cannot will what you will, because what you will is correspondent to the nature that you already have in you, whether that be predilected to one goal ultimately of self or another goal of glorification of God. But if you have a fallen flesh, the person can have a split in terms of not an equal split, but at least a difference in the will that they have inherited on their physical side, the fallen flesh, that has a corruption to it, and then of their spiritual side, which, if renewed in Christ, would be towards God and His will.
Right,
so, but Shiva, before I know you disagree.
I've actually been working on an argument.
No, I don't necessarily disagree.
I was wondering maybe what you think about this. So, people always say, well, the Bible is slavery, right? You hear that? The Bible promotes slavery, it allows slaves. You hear that? So I could say the Bible is the necessary precondition for freedom. Now, here's my argument. If freedom is dependent on your external circumstance, then you're a slave to your external circumstance, right? Think about that.
Sure. There's many ways to define slavery, yeah.
But like, if my freedom depends on like my environment or something, or influences in the environment, like I'll always be a slave to those forces. So I'll never really be free. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so then I'd argue that freedom has to come from within, and it has to come from God. And that gets into a thing about how freedom requires limitations and giving up what you want. Because if I just do whatever I want, then that would impact your freedom, right?
Sure.
So to be free, we have to give up what we want sometimes. So then where is it going with this? So because Jesus is free, like he freely accepted the cross, right? The Bible's explicit. He's so because only Jesus, only God is free. When we obey God, that's when we are free. And so it's a necessary, it's a necessary precondition for freedom.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point.
Agree. I just don't understand what you're talking about.
That's fine. I admit that I am sometimes way too in the weeds, and I try to split the difference between keeping it brief and making it clear, and I think I sacrifice clarity all the time, and so that's my fault. But Shiva, I would love to hear your thoughts before you give any challenges to mine.
Dude,
Sure.
dude, use small words because I'm retarded. So even though I don't understand what the fuck you were talking about,
I do mostly.
are you fucking looking after a fucking like a fucking Texan fucking Texas fucking thing like use a cap fucking
Okay.
bring it.
Yo, dude. Seriously. So, well, anyway.
Fucking down in fucking small words in simple fucking terms.
Look at every other word, like almost literally every other word with this guy is F this. Wow.
So simple people like me can understand. Jesus.
Okay, do you have
Christ,
20
dude.
minutes? You have 20 minutes?
That's just his Australian accent. That's just his accent.
Yeah, it's culture.
Charles starts to sweat when you use words over 4 letters long.
Yeah.
So if
Well, yeah, interestingly, are you re-exam? You say that guy is the most intelligent atheist that you interlock with? Huh.
determinism
Smartest
is
fucking
true,
atheist I
and
know. Fuck.
all our actions are caused by prior events, can we still be morally responsible for what we do? It depends on what you mean by morally
Also, who are they
responsible or
responsible
morals.
to, right?
So if you mean
Yeah, of course.
Oh, I think he's talking about this guy speaking now is the most.
Yeah. The Falmouth guy is not the guy that he's saying is intelligent.
Ozzy, oi, oi, oi.
like a kind of normative standard of behavior, and then you transgress that standard in some way, then yes, I think you can be held responsible for what you do, even if actions are caused by prior events.
Very interesting. So I think you and I have a very interesting convergence. That
Because like conditioning is a thing, right? So let's say like and part of conditioning is punishment and the threats thereof. And I think any parent will tell you that if you threaten a punishment for a given action and then you fail to deliver on that punishment, then that sends a message to the child that there are no consequences for their actions, right? And like, I mean,
I agree with that. I think he's right on that.
Yeah. So I mean, like I think it's perfectly fine to, like, even if determinism is true, because if determinism is false and our actions aren't caused, like, you could ask the question, if determinism is false and all our actions are random, which is the negative of causation, right? And all our actions are random, can we still be morally responsible for what we do?
No, that's
right?
not.
And
he's not
on a pragmatic.
It's about what causes your choice, right? Is my choice caused by? Is it determined by? I don't know, like what my environment or evolution or whatever, chemical reactions. Is it caused by that, or do I, of my own free will, cause my choice? That's what's should be framed. I don't know. It's like random. I don't know what that has to do with anything.
Yeah, the conversation needs to get into that, whether or not we have a will that we're interactive with. Definitely needs to get there, which it probably will.
Level, it seems to me that the answer has to be yes.
So you'd say in all cases responsibility would exist with rational moral agents.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Simple question. Who determined anything?
I don't think determinism implies an agent.
Well, someone had to, because
Why you should be kicked
Say
for? No, that Aussie guy is like ruining the conversation. It's just funny.
If there's determinism, then someone thinks that there is a person who said, "Oh, I think this is how things work." So who said what?
No, that's not what determinism is.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, because that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why I reject determinism, because I usually associate determinism with a non-theistic model of physics being unfolding into consequences that are merely descriptions and not prescriptions in any sense. Okay, what I mean by that is if a rock bumps into another rock, that's not a moral offense. But if a man punches another man, that's a moral offense, because there is a standard by which you can judge that the man has value, the man's well-being has value. You have responsibility to respect it. There are moral laws that correspond to that, and the punishment of those offenses is different than obviously the offense and the breaking of that moral law itself. So determinism, it could be just like I said when we started.
What's a moral law?
Yeah, so a moral law would be that which corresponds to our given purpose, and the given purpose would be given by God. So I'll give you an example of a moral law. Shiva, would you agree that we ought to believe and adhere to what is true, and we ought to reject what is false and not believe what you don't believe?
Like that. He's so Patrick likes to do this a lot, where he ties in morality to truth.
It's great. I mean, because it's inevitably part of the discussion.
Yeah,
It's not
I think
forcible.
I wish more people understood this too. So this is good.
Yeah.
Believe that.
No. Well, I mean, it's sort of depends.
Then why?
He said no. Huh?
To what is true, and we ought to reject.
That's a contradiction, performative contradiction. Because if there's no reason to know the truth, then why are we arguing and trying to determine the truth right now? What's the point?
Well, yeah, I don't think he's saying there's no reason, but he's saying there's no obligation to follow that which is true, right?
It's the same. I mean, it's like if there's no obligation to know true things, then there's no point to waste time trying to know. So think about. I don't know.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but you can choose a delusion because it benefits you knowingly.
Think about this. Let's say we're neighbors, and I come over, and I'm like, "Hey, my dog ran away." It's true, my dog ran away, right? If that's true, you feel this obligation to help me, provided you care about me or something, right? You'd feel some obligation to help me find my dog, right?
Right.
But what if the dog that ran away was in a movie? There's no obligation to go look for the dog. You see what I'm saying? So that's what happens. There's no reason to go find the truth.
Yeah, interesting example. Okay.
Shiva, would you agree that we ought to believe and adhere to what is true, and we ought to reject what is false and not believe what you don't believe that?
No. Well, I mean, it sort of depends.
Then why? Really?
Depends. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're,
let's talk about the cases.
Patrick's just ready to jump on that. I can tell. He just
concern,
flies.
If your concern is with the truth, then yes, you ought to adhere. You ought to adhere to that, right? Because otherwise, you're going to be failing in achieving whatever truth-based objective it is that you're striving for.
Should I believe that the truth is better than lies?
Should you believe that the truth is better than lies?
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Oh my God.
So what makes any world?
What?
Yeah.
Then why are we talking? Why you shouldn't even it's a performative contradiction for him to argue, because I could just believe false things. It doesn't matter. So
yeah, it's a rough claim. I mean, it's devastating.
View. Let me ask you this:
Let me give you an example.
All right.
Let me give you an example.
All right.
Let's say you're in Second World War, Nazi Germany, and you've got Jews hiding in
Here
your
we go.
house, and then the Nazis turn up at your door.
Yeah.
Is the truth?
Nice, Kevin. In the side chat, you were just commenting on our discussion, and
this is a totally different.
Here we are.
This is totally different. This is not the same.
Well, no, I mean it ties in to it ties into the idea of there being more of it ties into like objective morals, right? Like you're going to lie to save the Jews. And the question is becoming, does
Yeah.
that make the lie a good thing?
But that's not like a counterfactual to like it's good to know the truth. It's still good to know the
No,
truth.
it's not right. It's in the same vein, but he like the fact that he's denying that we ought to follow the truth is, yeah, it's a bigger problem than the Jews.
Well, yeah. What the problem is, like,
I would say that
Right. Go ahead.
if I make an argument and the premises are true, we would say like you ought to believe the conclusion. Like, what if I say, well, the premises are true, but you don't need to believe the conclusion? Well, the argument loses force. It has no force, and then it's like a contradiction to even argue at that point. There's no point to argue if your argument has no force. So,
Correct.
Yeah. Hey, Patrick, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, and I appreciate you guys reviewing the stream. It's just this one I actually get to flesh out more elements of the argument itself because it goes more directions than just a mute button. So
yeah,
he actually engages.
Mute him.
Yeah.
Is the truth better than a lie?
I would say that in that case, I don't know what I would do. I still believe that lying would be immoral in that case. So I'm going to remain.
But with the truth, but that's not the question. The question.
Oh, nice. I like how you answered that, Patrick. I don't get that often.
I disagree. I lied to the Yahtzees.
Yeah, he's not saying if you what you would do. He's saying does it suspend it from being a problem?
I don't think it's
still a moral problem.
It's the loving thing to do. The more loving.
It doesn't make lying a right action. Is the point?
I think it does.
Let me give you an example, PMars. If I steal bread because me and my children are starving, it doesn't become my property by virtue of my need. It's still sin, even if it's more understandable to our emotions. But it's more it's mitigated by the actual need, but it doesn't cease from being sin based on my needs. It's still there. It was still their bread in my mouth when I stole it.
Yeah, I agree, PMars, because then you have a situation where the circumstances you're in will dictate what is right.
I think like
and then I become the judge.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think there's ways to mitigate that. I think you can't like it's complicated. I don't know. I have a weird moral system. But
Well, you can come back to it if you want to.
yeah, this
but,
is my video.
I would say that I'm in line with Patrick on this one.
He would be the person who would go along. He would be the person who would go and do what.
The question. The
Charles, I'm going to
question
put you
is-
beside the rainbow, okay? Let Rex and Shiva have this back. Play with the rainbow, okay?
all right, yeah,
Push
cool.
beside the rainbow.
The question is, in that instance, when you have Jews hiding in your house, and you know that if you tell the truth, those Jews are going to be carted off to a concentration camp and gassed. In that instance, would the truth be better than a lie? Not is a lie immoral, right?
Yeah, well, I think in that particular instance, I could just evade giving an answer, so it wouldn't be a true dichotomy in that situation.
No. I don't think that's how the Nazis worked.
You never read The Hiding Place, then.
You know, one way that I've thought about this, Patrick, or explained it is in that situation. One way to defend that the lie is not just a good thing is because in that scenario, if you get caught in the lie, not only do the Jews die, but potentially your family or you die for lying, showing that the consequence of the lie still stands in reality.
Correct. I would also say that for the answer I gave, evading, even if I did die as a result of that, I believe that I would die with my integrity for not lying. But I don't see an instance where, I mean, isn't it James that says when we're faced with temptation, God will provide a way of escape for temptation? I mean, that way of escape would have to be not sinning.
Yeah, like the courage to not lie. is the way, but it's most people are going to take the lie.
And I'm not saying I even wouldn't under that pressure, because that would be kind of presumptuous to say that I wouldn't do that, because I've never faced anything even close to that.
Right.
But
go ahead.
I was just saying, if I had my calmness and I was just letting, what I believe God would have me do guide me, then I would just try and find the best evasive answer that I could. And it might not work, but at least I didn't sin.
Yeah, I know. I sometimes say, well, I might knowingly lie to take the risk of the better outcome, but it doesn't mean I'm negating the fact that lying is wrong. But I mean, I'll admit that I do that, sometimes when it comes to something I want to do, I'll kind of like, I probably shouldn't do that, but I'll risk it anyway. And I've done that plenty of times in my life, and there's been plenty of consequences.
Well, maybe.
But in the hiding place, I'll give you an example. So in the hiding place, Corrie ten Boom, when the Nazis came to her door, they had a place underneath the table, a compartment where the Jews were hidden. And he said, she said, yes, they are under the table when the Nazis came. And they went and looked under the curtain of the table, and then they were not there immediately under the table. And then so they laughed and went, even though she told them the truth. In a limited sense, sure, but the truth was given.
Excellent. And I think that was very quick-witted of her. But what if you're not quick-witted?
I don't even know that she had the intent of not telling. So, for example, I don't think she had the intent of misleading necessarily. But in the case of
well, then the consequence is kind of irrelevant to the question, right? Because like if she didn't intend to deceive the Nazis, and her intent was actually to give up the Jews so that they could be taken to a concentration camp. In that instance, are you saying that the truth was better than a lie?
Well, we're not, we're actually not at discussing whether the truth is better than a lie. Now we're discussing consequences under the guise of talking about whether the truth is better than a lie. Because if we were saying the truth,
nice point,
is better than a lie, then that would refer universally, and therefore the truth would also apply to the Nazis, meaning that they ought not kill the Jews. So in that case,
agreed. I thought that was just taken as given.
Right, which would be a self-contradiction of the model, because then if truth is always preferential to a lie, then it would also be preferential to the Nazis, which need to repent from their Judy hating. So you can't work.
Well, no, that's a separate. You're right.
No, it's not. It's universal. No, because it's a universal. That's a universal. We're talking about always. Now it's a universal. It's not particular in the sense of depend. See, you're importing the goal dependent model, which I'm not doing, because I said always.
Right, and so my response is not necessarily, because sometimes a lie is better than the truth. I would argue that in an instance where the lie is going to save someone's life, that in that instance the lie is better than the truth.
Got it. So you would argue that the lie is better than the truth in order for a great priority. Great. Why does that lie? Why does that life have value in order to recommend us to one choice and one belief over the other?
That's what do you mean one life over the other?
No. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, you're getting into his arbitrary value system now, right?
Yeah. Because I prefer it.
Yeah.
Let me back that up. Let's say I could tell them the truth, or I could tell them the lie. Let's say I could tell them they're in the closet, or I can tell them they're not in the closet, or whatever. Why does the well-being and life serve as the tiebreaker to my moral choices as to what I ought to do?
I mean, it seems to be fairly universal that life is valued.
Valued, but different than valuable, because
what is fairly universal, by the way?
It's kind of it's kind of sort of universal, Rob.
Yeah, sort of universal. Patrick, it's interesting too when you talk about the non-answer, because when you have a situation like this, you can have other situations of like a crooked alleged authority, like putting you in a scenario like answer this truthfully, or I'm going to do this to your family member. And you're like, well, I'm gonna tell you what you want to hear, even if it's not true, to conserve my family member. To just take it a little closer to home, because you're already dealing with deception, right? And deceptive force against you. But it's like, it's also fighting fire with fire at the same time. So it's a very tricky situation. But like, as far as like what I may actually do, like if someone says, you know, tell me this, even though it's a lie or I'm going to hurt your family, I might actually do that because I'm being forced to violently. So
yeah, I think the only medium for outcome-based thinking in Christianity is government. I don't think the private citizen has that responsibility. So, for example, in espionage, you have a national security problem if you don't use espionage. You people are spying on you. You got to spy on other people. In order to spy, you have to lie. You know, in order to, you know, part of spying is breaking into places you don't belong in, and every country does it, and that's just how the game is played for national security. I mean, yeah.
So you're kind of walking into deception as a job in that case, which
correct. How are you supposed to be a CIA, FBI agent if you can't lie?
I think like to Steelman, his view when he's saying like this is like a universally accepted belief or something, he's just saying like all cultures value life, but I don't think that's true, right? Because I don't think Islam values life. They have like kamikaze, you know, attacks and stuff, and they celebrate death. Like if they tell like mothers whose like literal children die, that it's like a good thing in Islam because they go to like I don't know Allah or whatever. But so I don't think that's universally true. That and I think like even the Bible, like they were sacrificing their children, they're sacrificing humans. So it's not universal that people value life. I think it's actually rare and it's something unique to Judeo-Christian values.
yeah, fair point.
Because goals are subjective, right?
Yeah, of course. All goals are
Right.
subjective. Yeah.
So now he's making more universal claims. All goals are subjective.
But that's where I want them. Great. So then their life doesn't necessarily serve as a tiebreaker between whether I tell them the truth or a lie.
Maybe not for you.
Furthermore, by telling the truth to the Nazis and where the Jews were hiding, you would have told the Jews that you're hiding that you would have protected them. So by telling the truth to the Nazis, you would inadvertently be then telling a lie to the Jews that you said that you would protect.
Ooh,
So
I like that.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Good point. I never thought of that. He's right.
So now your obligation, right, is to the Nazi soldiers over the Jews that you had.
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Well, in that case, I could still just dodge and weave, and I wouldn't have lied to anybody.
Dude, I never thought about that. I like that. I'm gonna have to remember that one. See, that's why I avoid that problem in my system because I would make like love absolute, and I'd say like love can't be analyzed or categorized into like commandments or something. And so, in any given situation, the moral thing is the loving thing, right? So I could say, well, it's loving to lie to the Nazis to protect the Jews.
Well, didn't Hitler think it was loving to take out the Jews for the benefit of the world?
Yeah, but my example for love is going to be Christ. Hitler's example for love was like Satan, right?
Well, we want to be careful because remember, Uzzah died trying to save the ark from falling, and he touched the ark when he shouldn't have. And most people would, in their own private judgments, would think, well, he's honoring God by trying to save the ark, but God didn't see it that way. God's rules were not abrogated for a situation.
No, I think that can be consistent with my view. God's ways aren't our ways. Yeah.
Well, that's Isaiah 55:8-9 as well. My thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not your ways.
Yeah, I think that can be consistent with what I'm saying. Like the Holy Spirit is involved in our hearts because we've been, transformed. Anyways, go ahead.
I maintain that I wouldn't take that approach.
That's actually a good point.
So that would be definitely a prioritization, which prioritization does mean that you have a moral map. So even if I took Terry exposition, which I'm not taking Terry exposition necessarily, but if
Right.
I did take Terry exposition, that relies on a pre-existing moral map that objectively guides my way of thinking and living.
Sure.
So that means that when we
So
opt to,
if it
so
was, if it was your family that was at risk.
here's the difference I want to talk about, because we're
Mhm.
talking about ultimacy really in truth and lies. So I would
Well, I'm
still
not.
say that I know you're not, but because you're using a goal-based model, but if I'm using a universal model. So when you're saying that sometimes it's better to tell a lie, that would mean
Mm-hmm.
that there is a principle within the universe that would be contradictory to why we ought to prefer the truth, and so the two would
No,
cancel out each
not
other.
in the universe.
Oh, then where
Like
does
the
it exist?
principle, I mean, in one's mind.
So now he's just subjectivizing it without realizing it, right? By bringing it to just one's own mind.
Right. He thinks it's safe within the mind of the individual because you can't deny the existence of the individual. And because everybody's an individual, they can't deny their own existence. They can't use a methodology to question their existence without begging the question of them existing in order to do it. Then it feels like a safe move, but it's actually not. Okay. So what makes one's mind the locus of what somebody ought to do? Isn't that viciously circular when the contrary is
It's the
available?
locus of what, and all of our actions determined by our minds.
Mm-hmm. So, but do we have rationality to choose one or the other, A, B, or C?
I mean, yeah, most of us, I think, yeah.
Okay. So, in the case of whether you would open the closet or not, you would say that there is an objective. If you use reason to determine that their lives are worth lying for, then you're saying that prior to your reasoning about that, there was an objective value by which you used to make a correct decision.
No.
Okay.
I don't think there is any such thing as an objective value. I don't even know what that means.
Okay. So an objective.
So you ask people who make claims like that if they think that claim itself is objectively true. Does that come up?
I wasn't going to use the epistemic approach. I was going to just stick to the moral approach to test its strength this time around.
Right on.
This is unbelievable.
The
that
value would.
What's that?
It's just so stupid. Like subjective morals only apply to me, the subject. Like if I have my personal like if I'm a vegan, that doesn't mean JG has to eat vegetables, right? Because I'm the vegan. That's my moral code. That's my subjective morals. But as soon as I go, hey JG, you got to eat vegetables. You can't eat meat because I'm vegan. Well, that's objective because I'm applying my morals to someone else. So how do you live your life without applying morals to someone? It's just nuts.
Well, on top of that, even if you wanted to suspend our disbelief and all that, you would have to, and I go on to ask this, I think, I would say, do you use reason to map out your morals, your subjective morals? And then he would say yes. And because if he would use reason, he has to make value claims to prioritize one direction over the other for each question, yes or no, on what he values and what he doesn't, what he would do and what he would not do. So even inside, even internal to the self, it's a problem.
Yeah, like what authority determines what's good reason and what's bad reason, right? That's also obligation.
It's right. And why can't it change on a whim? Why can't that change tomorrow in a system like that? Because it can.
Right. And then they would say based on better evidence. But if they're saying, number one, they're making better evidence on their map, and then if they made better evidence on their map as a permanent fixture, then even the changes themselves would be subject to a standard of evidence by which they are now adopting a new moral map. So the moral mapping never goes away, even in subjective ethics.
Well, this is a game of always hiding the standard, right? That's why we're trying to drive to what is ultimate truth, ultimate authority in your worldview, because each question that you ask, they want to sort of misdirect or move into another determination or another standard. And that becomes the name of the game, is like, what ultimate standard are you relying on? And, this guy would be either his idols or his self, which is self-worship is an idol in itself.
Would mean any trait or attribute of a thing that would be prescriptive to our thoughts and actions.
Right, but
Meaning,
what makes it objective?
What makes an ought? Yeah. Are you
No,
asking
what
in my
makes it?
worldview?
No. What makes it objective? Not
Yeah,
not ought.
because what makes a truth objective?
You know, I don't know if you ever asked somebody like a really pressing question, like when they're trying to argue against objective morality, you can say something like, what is it that makes you want to hold on to a worldview that says in certain scenarios it's okay to grape children?
Oh, well, he wouldn't admit to that. In fact, I don't think I've found a single atheist who would admit to that. In fact, as you've seen, atheists try and use that against Christians because they will conflate what God decrees versus what God approves.
Sure, but isn't it the case that they're holding on to a worldview that they can't say in all cases it's wrong to rape children?
Yeah,
see what I mean?
they are. No, yeah, they are.
That's
But
the
they
reason
just
I
don't.
asked
They
the
just don't
question
admit
like
to
that.
it.
Like you say, why do you hold to this belief that it may be okay to grape children in certain circumstances? It's a way of like putting it out there to get them to go, oh damn, why do I hold that? You know, you take the most pressing thing and contrast it against how they think about things.
You know what I do? I go, okay, so you've just made an argument that morals are subjective. Ought I believe your argument?
Correct.
And if they say yes, I go, you just contradicted yourself.
And if they say no, then the conversation over.
Right.
No, what makes the value objective?
In my worldview, or in your worldview?
In your worldview, yeah.
Yes, because it corresponds affirmatively to the mind of God in my worldview. My question is, how outside of that, how can somebody who is atheistic determine how to use rationality if they're not value mapping?
They are value mapping.
How? Are they using reason to value map?
Yeah, I would guess so. Some of them.
So if they're using reason to value map, that means a reason leads them to objective values by which they're using a rational system to determine what is the correct and incorrect way of going forward.
Sorry. Objective means independent of one's opinions, right? That's what the word objective means.
Can you reason? If we reason subjectively, and my reasoning is the exact contrary of yours, are both equally correct?
Not necessarily. It depends.
Not necessarily. It depends. Huh? Okay.
Depends on what's being reasoned.
Okay, so it's possible that not all, that some ways of reasoning are superior to others.
Superior. It depends on what one is trying to achieve.
Okay, so it's gold.
But you know, I find it interesting too the way people use the word reason and reasoning. Bonson points this out. Whose reasons? Who's reasoning? Right? It's not a neutral word.
Correct.
Yep.
But let's just say that I.
Sorry, I thought I heard somebody say something. No.
Agree with that.
Oh, I say
let's
the
just
same
say
thing.
that I agree with.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I say the same thing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That some forms of reasoning are like certainly if you're truth tracking, for example, I would agree that certain forms of reasoning are superior to others. Right.
Great.
If you're truth tracking.
If you're truth tracking, what is the other form of tracking?
Well, that's a good point. But I just grant him epistemology and then just see if I can work it through morals alone. And I think it works.
Yeah, you can, right.
For example, I would agree that certain forms of reasoning are superior to others, right?
Great.
Like I would argue that if you're trying to track the truth, that deductive reasoning is superior than going based on.
No, see, this is the typical atheist, right? They want to go into deduction, into the natural world, into these skipping over the a priori truth of Jesus Christ, transcendental categories. Like you're going to find simple facts in science, but those are based on philosophies and things that are not found in science. So this is a silly answer.
On a gut hunch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even the claim itself is not scientific, right?
Right. Okay. So, but in that case, if I said, oh, I want the gut punch, and then you want the reasoning, what's the tiebreaker between those two that makes you prefer reasoning over the gut punch?
Gut hunch.
Sorry, gut hunch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're just talking about what you're doing to him. The gut punch. It was a Freudian slip, right?
Yeah,
I get it.
I
it'd
was.
be that I
yeah,
don't
but
trust my hunches because they're quite often wrong, like
Is
turn
there-
out to be incorrect.
Okay, so
And I don't like being incorrect,
okay,
which is a
So-
shame because I'm incorrect so often.
life would be easier if you enjoyed being incorrect, I suppose. But let's
Yes.
say whatever your definition of incorrect is my definition of correct. And
Right.
what's the tiebreaker between yours and my position?
What do you mean? What's the tiebreaker?
Yeah, these are good like layman questions that are necessary. I'm surprised I haven't heard them prior to you doing this. Great question.
Okay.
What is the grounds by which you could blame me for not taking your position and you could affirm your position as better than mine?
I mean, blame is an interesting word there.
It is. But
Like,
what's
I'm
the
not sure
tiebreaker?
that I would blame you. I suppose for me, like the tiebreaker in terms of what I'm going to do, right? Because that's the only thing that I have kind of control over, is I suppose like how persuasive you are.
All he's saying is my current feelings are the tiebreaker. That's all he
Right.
has.
But that's fine.
Yeah.
It could be like, depending on my state of mind, that I'm, swayed by emotional arguments. So like I might find an emotional argument particularly compelling. I mean, that hasn't tended to be the case so far, but it's not outside the realms of possibility.
Sure. Can you judge goals like somebody's goal is better than another person's goal, or the contrary of a goal is bad and the affirmation of said goal is good? Is that possible to compare goals and have one goal objectively fall short of the value of another goal, or is that not possible?
No, I don't think. I mean, I think it's possible for you to subjectively do that. But again, like, okay, no, actually, yes, I think you can, because there's such a thing, because there's more than one type of objectivity, right? So, like, there's instrumental objectivity.
So when they try to do this with objectivity, isn't this just a way of saying, like, we can call something objective if we agree on it and collectively move towards an objective, which is just piling on subjectivity?
Well, so in the goal-based model, like if you want to have a deer for dinner, you have to go track it, hunt it, kill it, cook it. So that's something that's kind of hard to deny. And if you just go to how do you know that, people are just going to listen to the common sense of what the person said and kind of forget that your line of argumentation is epistemic. And then so I just kind of accept it, but then I just say, okay, well, I'll take that, I'll assign a value claim to it, and I'll imagine the contrary, the exact contrary to whatever goal you just said, and I'll ask what the tiebreaker is again.
Yeah.
Right, but that would be descriptive, not prescriptive, right? That would just describe
No.
the steps necessary in the physical world to achieve
Right,
something.
yeah,
That wouldn't
and that's
describe the value of the thing they're achieving.
Well, no, that is prescriptive.
Interesting.
If you need to follow those steps, that's a prescription.
But if the sun needs to shine, it must continue to.
The sun
have
doesn't need to shine.
Okay, but if we're hold on, let me finish here. If we are merely Shiva, if we're merely physical beings, right? Then all we're describing here is physical circumstances that result in following physical phenomena.
I'm not sure that we are merely physical beings.
So he's not committing to physicalism, materialism here, right?
He says he might be a physicalist, but not a materialist. Take that as you will.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see any distinction really.
I think a physicalist makes a distinction between the energy between matter and matter itself, and a materialist might not, or might just negate energy as a concept from its model. I don't know. I looked it up briefly. I'm not going to use a whole lot of time on that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that I'm a materialist.
Fair enough. You've not taken a stance on that.
Well, kind of. I think I might be a physicalist, maybe, in that, like, because I don't know what consciousness is. Like, if you were to ask me, is consciousness material or immaterial? Like, I wouldn't be able to give you an answer.
Yeah, that's right. If you're going to believe in consciousness, you're going to depart from materialism and physicalism. So this becomes a question of how do you merge these two ideas in your worldview? How do you have this mystery magic thing you're calling consciousness and apply it to the conversations, your reasons and rationale in your worldview? Becomes a huge problem for them if you want to take that route, which I know you're not doing here.
Well, what the thing he's doing now is he's unwilling to commit to anything.
Yeah,
So
right.
if he doesn't commit to anything, then Patrick has nothing to attack, and so it's
True.
like he's shadowing. Yeah,
That's true. But he can still get his point across to the viewers. But right, if he's not going to commit, it's going to make it more difficult.
Well, there is a vector of attack. The vector attack is his existing disagreement or his existing non-compliance with my worldview. And so I would ask him, what is the tiebreaker between yours and mine that you hold to yours and not mine? What is the holdout?
Sure,
So
because he's not agreeing with you, so there is an argument there, whether he's disclosing it or not. Or
as long as he holds an opinion, he's using a structure. And as long as he has a structure, he's preferring it to alternate structures. And you can continue to use that as you want to.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't, like, it seems like my mind is immaterial, but I'm not aware of a consciousness existing without a body. Like, I've never met a consciousness. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that I'm not aware of it. And I tend to use the supervenience model. So, like, my current thinking, and this is, provisional, because all of my views are provisional, is that something immaterial can supervene on the material. Like an example of that in physics would be magnetic fields, right? Which are themselves immaterial, but which supervene on the material. And whilst you can't say that the material causes the immaterial, you can say that a change in the underlying material brings about a change in the immaterial. Like, for example, if you're looking at a painting that's evoking a particular kind of quality of beauty.
Hold on, though. He's not sure if he's a materialist or a physicalist, and now he's talking about the immaterial and the physical interacting.
Oh, he has to, because we're using reason, and reason's immaterial, so he can't escape that. He's smart enough to know that.
He's popped himself out of his own worldview, though, in doing so.
Well, he's not saying spiritual outright, because you wouldn't say mathematics are material, and both of us are going to accept the idea of mathematics. So I'm just going to grant that to him. Again, I'm granting him epistemology and just strictly.
Yeah, I understand. You're not fighting him on that. I'm just, in critiquing this, though, it's interesting how he just maneuvers that somehow. I think so.
Within your experience, right? And then you.
And by the way, beauty, aesthetics, that's an interesting thing to consider objectively, if you've ever thought about that. I find it difficult to argue, but I think it's there.
I wasn't gonna argue beauty, because I'm sure there's a lot of places to hide there, so I would just let it go.
No, I know.
Like, someone comes along and then changes the brushstrokes, or adds more paint, or takes paint away from the painting, then your experience of beauty will also change. So yeah, it seems to me like, because I don't know what consciousness is. Like, it could be that it's somehow completely, like, discrete from our physical forms, but without any evidence to support that view, it's not one that I can claim with confidence. Yeah, so I wouldn't describe myself as a materialist, but I might be a physicalist.
Okay.
Wouldn't
In what way would you say?
I was gonna say you wouldn't have to like know specifically what consciousness is to know that, for example, like it's unified, right? And then so you need a unifier in order to tag. But anyways,
Well, that's a tough one.
That the goal-based ethic is prescriptive. What did you say? It's one-to-one the same as prescriptions of moral standards.
It depends. If you're trying to achieve a particular goal and you need to follow certain steps to attain that goal, then there's a type of objectivity called instrumental objectivity.
Yeah.
And in terms of morals, a good example of that, I mean, I would argue the same as that that this is the same for Christianity, but the Buddhist ethical framework, the precepts are not goals in themselves. They're a means to an end, right? If you want to become a Buddha, you have to abide by the precepts, because without sticking to the ethical guidelines, those ethical training principles.
You know, he's not even on the target, dude. What he's saying is so simple. Like you're going so much deeper than he's presenting. It's just
notice
almost
what he just. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, but notice what he just did with the Buddhism thing. He says, if you want to abide by the precepts, then, okay, if then, that's obligation. If X, then there's an obligation being smuggled. So he's smuggling in the obligation there. You see, without doing an account.
Well, he's still.
I can even grant him his own understanding of it, because what I go on to say is, well, then it's purely mechanical, and he agrees that it's purely mechanical, which I wasn't anticipating. But then all you have to do is hit him up. Every single claim is either prescriptive, meaning coming from a personal, intelligent, rational source, or it's descriptive, meaning that it is itself impersonal, the thing we're talking about. And then so I just, once he says that it is not a moral obligation, then I can legitimately have it be descriptive and therefore not in the moral conversation, and he would have to have it in his moral map, which would make it a moral claim in order to tell me whether I should or shouldn't do anything, or if it is actually beneficial at all. Now, unfortunately, I've got to stop yapping my flap and I got to go, but this is a really good one. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, thanks, Patrick. I'm gonna have to probably dip out myself in a half hour, so we'll get through as much as we can, and we might revisit it. Appreciate it.
You won't be able to attain to a calm mind. You won't be able to meditate, and you won't be able to cultivate insight. Like, so in order to become a Buddha, you objectively have to follow the ethical precepts.
Sure, but the ethical precepts you wouldn't consider to be mechanistic. Like if I want to build a car, I need to make an engine. It wouldn't be like it would be an actual failing of a standard by which I become blameworthy. Whereas I don't think, like, if I went to build a car, but I failed to build a car because I didn't have the knowledge, I would be guilty of something.
Right. No, no, it is exactly like that.
Really?
Like, I mean, like I wouldn't like.
Oh yeah, from a materialist framework, it is the same thing. But that's what Patrick's pointing out, is there's something more going on here. The whole idea of ethics, an ethical system, is more than material. It's beyond that. They're not talking about material things.
Guilt. I mean, first of all, like, guilt, I think, is an entirely useless and self-referential emotion. Guilt.
Really? So when somebody violates your family member, you don't recommend that they feel some guilt in order to change their behavior? You say it's useless to feel that way. Is that how you really operate?
Is not the same as remorse, right?
I'm talking about what we talked about earlier with T-Jump, was the status of guilt rather than the feeling of guilt, because I think you can be guilty without feeling guilty.
Right. So
you talk about
you mean just
psychopaths,
like
they do it all the
culpable?
time.
Yeah.
If you want to use that word, I think that's probably just as.
Well, yeah, that's what he said. Useless is like he's agreeing with a psychopath when he says guilt is useless, at least in the sense that I was considering it.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Sorry, could you?
Yeah.
Lost,
So
lost
what I'm
lost the
okay.
thread.
What you said that you need to obtain
Mm-hmm.
certain ethical norms in your life in order to achieve becoming a Buddha, correct? But I'm
Yes.
saying that you wouldn't consider those ethics a mechanistic form of ought, like a goal-based ought, in terms of you crank the wheel and then you get a result. But you would
Yes, I
say
would.
that you would.
Right. That is consistent in his worldview. However, I'm sure Patrick's about to point out some problems with that.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course. If you don't abide by the ethical in the Buddhist system, the kind of very first step is actually generosity, right? That actually sits underneath.
It's worth pointing out too, the Buddhist system, the Buddhist religion is going to be monistic. So the distinctions become impossible. So for somebody trying to argue Buddhism against Christianity, it's quite an easy argument.
Morals, right? But generally speaking, there's a kind of threefold like model of Buddhist practice, which
But
is
you see,
ethics.
You see what I was saying? What he's doing is like he's saying, well, if you want to be moral, then you have to do this, right?
Yeah.
See how it's being smuggled in? Because the obligation is in the if then. He's not giving an account for it. He's just literally asserting if then. If you want to be moral, then you have to do this. Well, that's the if then is an obligation. That's not accounted for.
But yeah, he's spending a long time just giving us like basic assertion of like, oh, if you want to reach a goal, you got to follow certain steps. Okay?
But that's begging the question. He's just literally dogmatically asserting the goal. But he's trying to make it seem like logic, like if you want this, then that. But that's being smuggled in. That's not an account.
Right.
Like a description.
He's missing Patrick's overall point and giving a very simplistic demonstration. And it's taken him a long time too.
Meditation, insight, right? You can't, in the Buddhist system.
Oh, hey, Brother Timothy, ethics and morals are not the same thing. Well, the way I use it is the system that you operate with, your worldview is an ethical system, and then the individual behavior that you engage with is the moral behavior, but it would be tied to the ethical system. I don't know if you had another way that you thought about that, but you're welcome to share.
You cannot cultivate insight without meditation, but you can't achieve a stable meditation practice that allows for insight if your mind is agitated. And according to the Buddhist system, acting unethically agitates the mind. So yes, it's mechanistic.
Are there any ethics that you would be culpable for offending regardless of what your personal goal is?
Yeah, sure. If I were to commit murder, then I would be culpable for that, right?
Great. So it would not be dependent on
responsible.
So it would not be dependent upon your personal voluntary goals. It would be independent of your goals, the culpability, whether you decide to play the game or not.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about when I talk about objectivity. But how can you be blameworthy if there is no responsibility to anyone that would exist? And if there is a responsibility, how does that work?
Because whether we like it or not, we are held responsible for our actions.
What does that mean?
He's just talking about a subjective man-made system now, like a legal system.
It means it doesn't matter if you're like a moral nihilist who has the genuine belief that morals don't exist, right? Whether you believe that, like if you believe that and then you go out and rob people and then you get caught for that, well, you're going to be held responsible for those actions.
It's so basic, this conversation that he's given us. It's just, I've had these conversations before. All he's doing is saying, yeah, when you got in society, he's not making it asserting that there's anything wrong with stealing, lying, or killing other than other people react negatively. That's all he's saying.
Perspective of your views on the nature of morals,
Yeah,
because
sorry.
other people will say, don't do that, we don't like that, and if you do that, then these are going to be the consequences.
But how is that not just a description of evolutionary installments in our behavior rather than something that exists beyond our rational thoughts and our rational, like before our rational
It
thoughts?
isn't.
Yeah, exactly. So Patrick's pushing him to the greater point.
It doesn't. So it is a description.
No,
it's
no,
really descriptive.
No, it's prescriptive.
No, it's not. Okay.
Look, if a parent tells a child, don't do that, is that a prescription?
Yes, because you actually have a
Right.
personal source by which that prescription would exist, which would be
Right.
sort of a corollary
and the
to
same
God.
goes, yeah, and the same, no, it would be the parent.
I agree that in the isolated case we're using, it would be the parent, but you would have a personal source in that case. In the case of humanity at large, there's no personal source there to actually make that correspondence real.
Right. What about the legal system?
Yeah. What about the legal system? So one way to have these conversations when you're in this type of predicament is to bring it to an island analogy. You say 10 strangers show up on an island, just all shipwrecked on different aspects of the island. They all come together in the middle, and you start asking questions like, what is moral? What are ethics? You're in a new territory. You're with complete strangers. This will get Shiva, this guy, thinking outside of these simple parameters where he's just pointing out there's legal ramifications and person-to-person ramifications of a behavioral response. You walk into a lunchroom, you start eating off people's plates. Yeah, you're going to get a response. That's not what Patrick's asking you. He's asking why things are wrong. What is wrong with what you're actually doing? What is the prescriptive nature of the wrong in the action that you're describing? Pick any example.
What about the legal system? I agree that we have a legal system, but in a godless world, the legal system is just an outcropping of evolutionary pressures that have converged into how we relate together as a species. But that's merely descriptive phenomena. It's only prescriptive in a colloquial sense of like, that's what the powers that be do, but that just breaks down to force doctrine. But then you just have to ask, does force doctrine have any value compared to the contrary? And then we're back to the dilemma.
Right.
I mean, like it's, I mean, first of all, I think okay, like what's your,
yeah, it would be nice if he just stopped and absorbed what Patrick said instead of moving into a line of questioning, but perhaps his line of questioning is going to help him.
I mean, it's not at all clear to me in any way whatsoever that morals are, I'm going to say, metaphysically objective.
Yeah, we gathered that, buddy.
Like that, if you're going to make that claim, which seems to be the claim that you're wanting to make, then that claim needs justification.
Awesome. I'm glad you.
Which entails a moral or an ethical system, doesn't it? This guy doesn't know what he's saying. He just doesn't know what he's talking about. He's saying, "Oh, it needs justification." That's an ethical claim, and he's not even caught on to this. I think Patrick's ready to go here.
You said that. So, if that claim needs justification, therefore, if I make a claim, I therefore ought to back it up or reject said claim because truth is objectively more.
No, if you
oh, he's got to push back. Patrick's laying it out, but nope.
Want to convince me?
So it's all about convincing you. This is the typical atheist, right? Patrick's leading him to this point. He's starting to catch on, and he's making it about him. Nope, it's just about convincing me. It's all about you, atheist, unbeliever. Your world revolves around you. You think you're the arbiter of what's right and wrong.
So I don't actually. So it's not that ideas have to be backed up. You just prefer that they're backed up, but objectively.
Yes, great point. clarifying that he's saying, "Oh, you need this." He's saying, "No, you're not actually saying, you can't account for saying I need to do that. You're saying you want me to do that. It's your preference." See how Patrick has this clear understanding of the constant smuggles, the constant moral smuggles coming in that the unbeliever, the atheist, is blind to.
Yeah, he did a good job.
No idea ever had.
Yeah, he did good.
Yeah.
He's doing really good. Yeah.
One more time. Sorry, I just didn't hear you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, PMars.
I'm sorry. I'm kind of like.
Well, back up.
My bad.
Yes.
All I was trying to say, I was agreeing with you that he's doing a really good job of pointing these things out. That's all I was trying to say. I'm kind of like in and out in the kitchen, so.
Oh yeah, what you cooking, bud? Too personal. I get it,
Yeah,
but I only have 15 more minutes.
Yeah, I'll just listen. Yeah, I'm just making some cheeseburgers for my fat face.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Presumably, you do want to convince me.
But regardless,
Yeah. Regardless, this is not about convincing you. It's about making a point. It's not all about you, atheist, unbeliever. There's an audience listening. They can hear your folly, your misstep, your departure from physicalism into transcendental categories, into immaterial ideas. You continually grant yourself things that can be questioned. And Patrick is aware of that. There's many things on the table here, but he's focusing in on one thing because he knows it's attached or undivorceable from all your other claims. And that's the domain of ethics.
that's the separate question of whether convincing you is rational or has any value or not. And if you're going to make any rational claim, for example, if you're going to reject God based on a set of principles and logical axioms, then that means that you believe those set of principles and logical axioms have prescriptive value over you, not merely goal-based, but transcendental in their scope.
No, like you're. It seems to me that you're using the word prescriptive in a really narrow sense.
I use it the same way you used it. You used a personal source over a personal source, a parent
No,
over a child.
those were your words.
That was your
Those
words,
were your
sir.
words.
That was your words.
Yeah, no, I used a parent as an example, but I also used the legal system as an example.
Which is also from a personal source. But let's look at it this way. Can a rock tell a child that they are responsible to the rock?
As far as I'm aware, no.
What about the laws of physics? Can the laws of physics tell a child what their purpose is in life?
No, I don't think that's within the purview of science, is it?
No, it is not. What about the laws of logic? Can the laws of logic tell a child what they ought to do?
What are the laws of logic?
Oh, come on now.
We'll use the three classical, the law of non-contradiction, of course.
They're not laws of logic.
What are the laws of logic? Moves to answer. Quickly says they're not laws of logic. Okay, so is he going to tell us?
Okay.
They're the laws of thought. You can't.
The laws of logic can be laws of thought as well, Shiva. Those are not mutually exclusive concepts.
You can't derive a system of logic from the law of non-contradiction, the law of identity, and the law of excluded middle.
So has anyone ever broken the laws of thought? Has anyone ever broken the laws of thought?
Yeah, I do all the fucking time.
In what
So did you just negate yourself?
sense are they a law? Then in what sense are they a law?
That's what they're called.
Okay,
or
so
the
that's
rules of
back
thought.
to human
We can
convention.
just call them rules of thought. I think they might be called the rules of thought, but you know.
So he has an issue with the word law. We got a Tommy here, I guess. The law. You know, that's a fair point too. Atheism, unbelievers, they do have typically issues with laws, God's laws. And that's great that Patrick's here, you know, attacking or focusing on this very subject, ethics and morality, because that tends to be the problem. I remember Stuart Connectley. He was saying that when he was in college, he was asking different roommates and different students like what it was like, you know, like in a long conversation at the end of the night, like what is really preventing you from believing? It doesn't sound like it's a problem of logic so much, or that it's not possible. What is really holding you back? And he would get the answer that it's the things they want to do, the behavior they want to engage in. The Christian worldview would be preventative of the things they want to do. And I find that interesting. I find that revealing.
Rules, laws, like, yeah.
Okay, so they can be broken. So in what sense are they a law if they can be broken and then you can continue on in them? It's not like the laws of physics where they are, you know, you have non-conscious entities that are necessarily bound by those. I mean, loosely speaking.
These are different contexts, right?
Right. That's why I want to know what you mean by law in the laws of logic. And now you're saying the laws
I
of
didn't
thought.
mention the laws of logic. You did. All I did was correct you on one word, which was thought rather than logic.
And I was about to say, which you said laws of thought, which is fine. Are these laws possibly broken? You said yes. And then in what sense is they a law? That's the next question. In what sense are they a law if they can be broken, if we don't have some free moral agency at play, irrespective of physics playing on our brain?
Do you think that
Shiva, he asked you a question, but you got to ask him a question back.
Like breaking the laws of thought or the laws of logic. Let's just call them the laws of logic. But I'm kind of, it's a bit of a bugbear of mine. I kind of want people to use the right nomenclature because, you know, I'm a bit pedantic.
That's fine.
Yeah, you want them to use the right nomenclature of the thing that you don't know what you're talking about. That makes sense.
Like, is there a kind of moral, on your view, is there a moral component to, say,
he's not even correct on the nomenclature because, like you pointed out, laws of thought and laws of logic are interchangeable.
Yeah, I mean, he's looking for any type of win here. He's outside of his scope. I mean, Patrick is dialed in here, and he's just like, Patrick is like, okay, what can I grant him so he can follow this conversation? And he's just trying to pick at little things. It's kind of frustrating.
Like making a contradictory statement. Like if I was to say, that's a square circle, is there like a moral aspect to that statement?
That's a good question. I like that question because it's funny when you ask that stuff. Like if I say 2 + 2 = 5, is there a moral component? Sometimes people say, well, no, you can say that. And then go, okay, well, what about when I'm paying you back? And I say I borrowed 2 on Tuesday and I borrowed 2 on Thursday, so here's 3 back. Oh, well, all of a sudden my addition skills, or my preference that 2 + 2 = 3, in that case, it becomes a problem, right? So it's interesting to ask these types of questions. Like, is it wrong to say that there's a square circle? And the answer is yes, because you are promoting an untruth, to put it simply. You're expressing something that is untrue and declaring something that is untrue. So yeah, in the Christian worldview, there is a moral aspect. Yes.
Yeah, so for example, if you say that's a squared circle, I have the moral responsibility to tell you, unless there is a prevailing concern of why I ought not tell you, I have the moral responsibility to correct you and say you cannot have a squared circle. If I fail to do so, I leave you in ignorance when I can do otherwise. And in your case, you have
Yeah, well said, Patrick.
faculties that you ought. Well,
That's
hold
not
on.
the question that I asked.
But you said there's a moral aspect. I gave you a moral aspect.
Right, but I'm talking about not the interlocutor. I'm talking.
Oh, if you're talking to yourself, can you lie to yourself, Shiva? Is that what you're asking? What do you think? It's going to be the same answer because deception starts with the self. So if Patrick tells himself there's a square circle and holds that belief, knowing that it's false, yes, he's not deceiving another person. He's deceiving himself. And that's a great topic too, because all deception and misinformation and misguidance starts with the self. That's the reason to have these very conversations, is to get what we call the self and our mind in line with the mind of God. Christians seek after the mind of God, knowing that we can never fully know the mind of God. We still seek the knowledge of God and the walk of God, or the walk of Jesus Christ.
Talking about the person who's making the contradictory statement. If someone makes a statement that's contradictory, does that statement have a kind of moral component to it?
In virtue of the fact that we ought to think correctly, we ought to think in correspondence to reality as best we can. We're not held to be omniscient because we can't be omniscient. But if we
Right.
have the faculties to know better, we do not avail ourselves of the information necessary to know better. We are culpable by not knowing better relative to our development in our life.
Why?
Because we have purpose, and that purpose comes from a personal source, because as you have suggested, there's no evidence to come to the conclusion that impersonal sources can give purpose or direction to a life, or determine which way we should value map, and therefore which way we ought to reason.
What's our purpose?
Yeah, our purpose is to enjoy God and glorify him forever.
Fuck that.
Well, that's a very academic answer, Shiva.
Glorify God?
Emotional appeals incoming. Hissy fit incoming.
Get fucked.
Well, you asked me. I gave you my answer.
Glorify God. God made a world in which people suffer so much they kill themselves. Fuck God.
All right. Well, I will stop talking now.
I like the way Patrick handles things. What a nice guy, mild-mannered guy, you know, really focusing in on the truth of the matter, not getting thwarted by, you know, people acting out, people acting emotional. Stand-up guy. Well, you know, I'm really looking forward to hearing more from him.
In terms of purpose, I would say pursue meaning.
I'm gonna go.
Yeah, I've been taking this approach more where, like, when I can tell the conversation is not gonna be fruitful, it's just like, well, I'll just stop talking or I'll just disengage. That's fine.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that's best. You know, at least given a cooling period, let him cool down, let off some steam.
Yeah.
That was inappropriate of me. I apologize. I'll see you
Shiva,
guys later.
I even though we never met in real life, I actually do really care about you, and I do like these conversations with you, and maybe it was irresponsible of me to even go there. But
it's see, this is why I kind of realized recently that I'm probably never going to be able to actually debate a Christian ever again.
Okay.
Especially if morals come up. Because they're going to then say that God is a source of morality. And it's like, he made a world in which children get cancer. And if he's omnipotent, and we are taking omnipotence to mean having the ability to do anything that isn't a logical contradiction or doesn't break the three classical laws of thought for some reason, right? Then he didn't have to make a world in which children get cancer. He chose to. And see, yeah. It's a bastard because I actually really enjoyed debating Christians.
Well, yeah, that's cool how he kind of calmed down and apologized, and that Patrick was, you know, totally benevolent there. But listen to what he's saying. He's saying that he's not saying he can overcome the Christian argument. All he's saying is he gets so emotionally rattled by the idea of a moral God that he can't even engage. I mean, it's a nice confession, but it's interesting how he thinks, like the way he said, if morals come up. Like Patrick's point is that ethics and morals are inevitable in all conversations. Like there's going to be a component of value within the conversation. That's why we talk. There's components of behavior. We try to influence one another. Oh, I think this. Well, I consider that, but I also think this. It's constantly.
Think about what just happened. He just got morally outraged.
Right. Yes. It's right there.
Yeah.
It's very interesting what's happening here. And unfortunately, I'm out of time. So I gotta go. Thanks for all your participating, and thanks for jumping up here, PMars, and I'll catch you next time. If you got anything else you wanna bring up, you're welcome to. On that note, take care all, and God bless. We'll see you next time.